you want to start again then? I'll start again because I didn't realise I had my microphone. I couldn't see it beyond my screen there. So everyone, welcome to the Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee. It's the last one of this particular cycle because we are moving to the end of this council. We'll have a new council following elections on this in the 7th of May. Hello, did you have public questions? Did you want to go upstairs? Yeah, thank you. Lovely. So yes, hopefully we'll be around the table again, but who knows what will happen after there. So it is our last scheduled committee for this particular cycle. Although we did have new dates have come out already, which was which rather shocked me. We have one in April, but it's actually 27, not 26. So it's definitely our last meeting. So welcome everybody, and thank you for our guests, press and officers present, and our members of the public in the gallery. So I do have some apologies and substitutions. I've got apologies from Councillor Jordan, Councillor Beston, and we have Councillor Blake, who is Councillor Beston's substitute today. And we've had a change in the proportionality, haven't we? So I think everyone's here. Yes, because we've only got two. So Councillor. Oh, yes, sorry, my vice chair is not here. It's to be Councillor Ward, of course, has given his apologies. So if anything does happen to me in the meeting and I don't have a vice, I'll have to nominate someone and we'll have to vote a new chair for the rest of the meeting, but hopefully nothing will happen to me and it won't go on for hours, which will be great as well. So I think that's all the apologies, yes. Apologies for my stiltedness this evening. I'm working from my laptop. It's not as easy as the papers, but it's okay. So we've done that. So I've read the minutes, and is everyone satisfied with the minutes, the true record of our last meeting held in January? Can I have yes, Councillor Jarman, Councillor Adams, second them. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you. I'll just sign those. Members, does anyone have any declarations of interest they'd like to make on any matters on the agenda this evening? Councillor Quirk.
On the item under the TRO, I do know the developer and I have employed him in his capacity as a builder in the past.
A pecuniary, non-pecuniary?
Non-pecuniary.
Non-pecuniary, thank you. That's the important bit, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Blake.
Chair, a similar non-pecuniary interest through knowing the developer company involved.
So public question time. I do have some questions from the public that we have assembled answers to. I think I've got 3. I don't know if anyone's in the public gallery. My first question is from Mr. Jonathan Wedge. Is Mr. Wedge in the gallery? No? Well, I'll start with his question. I'll read it out and the response as well. So this relates, I think it relates specifically to our the TRO that we're making a decision on this evening. So Mr. Jonathan Wedge to the chair. My apologies, but I must give a very short preamble so that my question is taken in the correct context by the assembled members. I'm a chartered surveyor with over 40 years' experience of practice on the island. I'm well aware of planning and residential housing matters. Item 6A, subsection 37 of the agenda, which starts, the risk was assessed in line with the Isle of Wight Council's TRO policy, needs to be in front of members as this question is read, please. This conclusion and finding is poorly conceived and, in my opinion, wholly incorrect. Many dwellings here do not have direct road frontage. The cost of installing new driveways is significant and likely to be beyond many residents. In any event, it is by no means certain the Highway Authority will sanction all or any additional new access points onto the highway. Garages are too small for most modern cars and suitable only for cycles and garden implements. The new development, if it proceeds, will only have parking for residents and visitors. It will not be designed to take overspill from the existing estate. My question is, therefore, what provisions have the councils made to adequately deal with the significant social unrest that will occur in the areas where all the displaced cars are parked in nearby streets, and which I know from experience will be of significant annoyance and inconvenience to existing residents in these areas? So this is a response from me that's being prepared by officers, because there's some quite technical stuff in there. You have not mentioned the area within the double yellow line proposal is, but I will assume that relates to a proposal the committee discussing this evening, as I've just said. We do understand that any change to parking arrangements can create uncertainty, and we appreciate the residents may be worried about how restrictions could affect surrounding streets. While we recognise that some displacement of vehicles may occur, the primary purpose of these restrictions is to address the essential safety requirements, including maintaining visibility at junctions, ensuring free flow of traffic, and securing access for emergency vehicles. These are statutory responsibilities that must be prioritised to protect all road users. Parking on the public highway is not something that the council is obliged to provide, and it cannot be guaranteed where it conflicts with safety or operational needs. For this reason, the introduction of restrictions is based on evidence of risk rather than on an expectation of demand for parking. Should the proposal be agreed, the council will continue to monitor the area once restrictions are in place. If further amendments are required to manage parking behaviour or protect residents from unreasonable impacts, these can be considered through the appropriate highway processes. Our aim is to ensure a safe and accessible road network for everyone who uses it, while working constructively with residents as the change to the highway bed in. My next question is from Mr. Dr. Dennis Lloyd. Is Dr. Dennis Lloyd in there? I'll read the question out. My question relates to item 6A, in particular agenda item 37, appendix items 5 and 5.1 and 8. My concern is that councils have accurate information about the level of parking in the area under consideration. Consequently, my question is as follows. Have any elected members of the committee visited the area recently after 7 p.m. to ascertain the lack of available parking spaces and consequently the potential to adverse impact upon residents' parking that the removal of 26 parking spots will have in an area which is already clearly and evidently close to full capacity, and one in which there is very little opportunity of creating further parking spaces by converting front gardens for off-road parking, or indeed the financial means to do so? Unfortunately, the potential hardship caused by TROs and difficulty of rectifying that hardship has been presented to you in what I consider very misleading and inaccurate way, see references above, which by no means reflects to you the truth of the matter, as you could easily observe within a visit to the area. Again, the response from me, prepared for by officers. Thank you for taking the time to raise your concern about the proposal. There has been no formal site visit conducted by members of the committee. However, the recommendations within the report are the result of a formal assessment view undertaken by council officers and the relevant technical leads at Island Roads. And just to add here, we also have spoken the committee to the local member as well. We acknowledge that the introduction of the proposed TRO may result in displacement of vehicles. However, the primary purpose of these restrictions is to address essential safety requirements, including maintaining visibility at junctions, ensuring free flow of traffic, and securing access for emergency vehicles. These are statutory responsibilities that must be prioritised to protect all road users. We are aware that to help minimise the overall loss of on-street parking, existing planning permissions 22/00629/OUT for 113 homes and 22/00631/FUL for 19 homes include conditions requiring a total of 15 publicly available on-street parking spaces within the developments. Parking on the public highway is not something that the council is obliged to provide, and it cannot be guaranteed where it conflicts with safety or operational needs. For this reason, the introduction of restrictions is based on evidence of risk. Final written question I have from Sue Cook. Is Sue in the gallery? No? Okay, I'll read this out then. As the current safe road system as declared by Island Roads in the planning decision is to be compromised by the development and the route made unsafe, requiring the mitigation of TROs preventing multi-generational working households parking on the road, where does the committee suggest that these householders park their cars in a Gunville that is largely parking prohibited, while still feeling valued by the council, and that their well-being matters as much as new residents, without relying on spaces within development that would undoubtedly be used by new residents and conflict created? Response: thank you for taking the time to raise your concern about this proposal. There has been no formal site visit conducted by members of the committee. However, the recommendation in the report are the result of a formal assessment review undertaken by council officers and relevant technical leads at Island Roads. And as I previously said, the committee has spoken with Councillor Lever, a local member. We acknowledge that the instruction of the proposed TRO may result in the displacement of vehicles. However, the primary purpose of these restrictions is to address essential safety requirements, including maintaining visibility at junctions, ensuring free flow of traffic, and securing access for emergency vehicles. These are statutory responsibilities that must be prioritised to protect all road users. Parking on the public highway is not something that the council is obliged to provide, and it cannot be guaranteed where it conflicts with safety or operational needs. For this reason, the instruction of restrictions is based on evidence of risk. We are aware that to help minimise the loss of on-street parking, the existing planning permissions, which I just read out, I won't read them out again, the 113 homes and 19 homes include conditions requiring a total of 15 publicly available on-street parking space within development. I think we've got time. We've got time, Sarah, for a couple more oral questions. Is there anyone? I've got some members in the gallery. Were there? We've got a little bit of time left. If anyone would like to ask any questions, or you're just here to observe. If you want to ask a question, just step up to the microphone, and if your name and where you're from, not your address, but maybe the general location, and it can ask your question, and we'll do our best to respond. Just need to press the button.
The basic question is, where are people going to park? They won't want to park on the new estate. They don't want to park on Gunville Road. They want to park where they're parking now. And if you put yellow lines, there won't be any spaces for those cars. They won't just disappear into thin air. So, and what I can't understand, you say it's all to do with safety. We have never, ever had an accident on any of those roads. Never. So it's safe and it's fine. So we don't need yellow lines, basically. But where are the people going to park?
Thank you. I'm going to pass over to Stuart Chandler now, who has deep knowledge of this whole issue.
Has he visited the area?
Oh, I know the area, yes. Yeah, Mr. Chandler would have, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. And just to clarify, I'm Stuart Chandler, I'm the Transport Strategy Manager for the Council, an Island resident, an Islander through and through. I know the area very well, having lived in Carisbrooke for most of my life. Just to clarify, we do anticipate there will be displacement of parking during it. There is additional capacity being built in within the development for on-street. The reality in regards to the safety issues, you are quite right, we've not had an issue there before. However, these are preventative measures given that during the construction phase and once occupied, there'd be high number of vehicle movements anticipated through that section of the road, especially with larger vehicles, certainly during the construction phase, than what there is at the moment. And so therefore it is anticipated they will be necessary to ensure that it remains safe as it does, if not better than it has done before. Bearing in mind that this is a highly residential area where there's younger families as well. So therefore, you know, we've had instances in the near vicinity where children have unfortunately gone out in front of vehicles before. And so it is a case that we're mindful of that when we put these proposals together. But we are all very considerate and always fully aware of the impacts it will have on residents, especially those with multiple cars who rely on street parking. But on certain circumstances, we've really got to look at the safety potential issues that may arise.
So Can I just say, so at the moment, we're aware that the developer has taken his development, he's stopped, the land is up for sale again. So are we certain that anybody who buys the land and develops it is going to do exactly the same as the person that DN Associates have planned, or are they going to do something different?
That's a good point. I think we will be discussing this when we get to the agenda item. I think there'll be a thorough discussion over elements like that. Did you want to come in as well, Stuart?
Yeah, by all means, the planning permission stands. So therefore, the conditions therein still apply. So if the land is passed on, they wish to proceed with the permissions secured in place, then the conditions will remain as well. So therefore, they would be required to deliver those as if it was the current developer DNA associates themselves. Obviously, these restrictions are only due to be installed should they proceed and agree that they're commencing with the construction. They're not going to be installed in advance, significantly in advance. They would just make sure that they're ready for that development to go forwards at the point in which they've confirmed they're already geared to go.
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's really important. I think it's worth, thank you for bringing up about the safety thing. We understand it's not an issue now, but it's only because there's a planning permission for all these houses that we have to future scan for the safety of everybody. But thank you for coming. Thank you for your question. I hope you'll stay for the discussion as well when we get to the agenda item. But thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Yes, just come forward. Say your name and where you're from. Thank you.
That on? Yeah, I'm a member of Gunville Methodist Church, the church that's on the corner there. What we're concerned with is people be parking in our car park, residents be parking in our car park because there wouldn't be anywhere else to park around the estate. So there wouldn't be any parking available for functions that go on there, which is extensively used for the community as well as the church. That's what we're concerned with.
I mean, that is a valid point. I don't know if there's anything you can do to protect. I mean, I've parked there myself, and we've been to events up there. And yeah, sometimes you have to park on the street. You can't get in there because it's a very useful facility, but it's not massive, is it? So you will get full up very quickly. But I can see that. I think that's something that we will be able to control from the Isle of Wight Council. Stuart, if you've got anything just to add to that.
Just to say that, yeah, I do recognise your concerns in relation to this matter, but obviously we don't have powers as Highways Authority to implement any measures on your land per se, certainly not without your agreement as well, and on the basis that it's considered public highway, but you don't want to go down those lines. Obviously, there are measures which you can consider to take yourselves. It might not be something you're wanting to do, given that it being the Methodist Church and so forth. However, we will certainly work with, if there's issues that come out of, as we said, we've been monitoring and evaluating the impact of these proposed TROs should they go in. So if there are impacts as a result of that, we will look at what interventions we can do to minimise that issue. And I totally recognise the pressure, especially holding events and so forth. But we can again provide some advice in regards to how to get to and from with such as the local bus service 7 and the local bus services, certainly the 38, which operates nearby, not too far a distance, but obviously the 7 serves the stops closest to the church as well. So there are options. And again, it's recognising that as the Island Green Link goes through in the West Wight Greenway, there will be another, hopefully, a good cycling and walking route, which will offer a good, true alternative to people to get through to that section of Gunville as well and open up for the benefit of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. So item 5, so I'm going back over because people online can't hear unless the microphone's on. The update on actions, we've just got those 2 items, local transport plan and the interaction with updates from Island Roads. Anything to add to that, members? Any other actions you wish to see on that paper in future you can think of? No. Oh yes, Councillor Jarman, you're going to say something?
I was just going to ask whether the committee had seen a list of the projects for which funding have been used, which is one of the action items.
Yeah, I can talk to both these points. It's an intention to provide a bit of an update in regards to where we are now in both of these matters. So the first point in regards to the intention to provide a scheduled capital programme for this year and a further 5 years. We're happy to share what we have proposed based upon it's been through the corporate management team and also through the highways team itself, because we're looking at the funding allocation that's come from the Department for Transport this year, and we've mapped that all out. So we know the general areas and the individual schemes that we'll be looking to put that money for. That will be for the next financial year. We're still developing on the part for the next 5 years, and we should certainly share that with you. And all of the details, more than happy to share that with the committee in due course. It has just been worked on this very week. We have been developing and finalising that programme for the next financial year.
Supplementary, yes. So could we?
I'll bring Councillor Stewart in after that.
Thank you. So for the other action items on here, could we actually know when they're likely to be fulfilled? Do we have a date for those, both in the items raised under TP4 and the ones on the PFI update?
Yeah, more than happy to provide a formal update on the capital programme at the next committee. More than happy to do that. And then you can have the documents and the proposals in writing. But ahead of that, I will send it through anyway to the chair and to Democratic Services for distribution as well, because we, as we say, we have mapped out based on the funding allocation we've got this year what we're doing going forwards. And we can certainly pick up on some of those more historic items that have carried across from previous years and been moved forwards into the next few years as well. So yeah, happy to do that directly, probably the next couple of days, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's just good to discharge the items on the list at some stage rather than just keep adding.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And likewise, the other item on there was in regards to what the list of the project that was being used, so the funding that came for what was known as the Potholes Fund by the Department for Transport previously. We can confirm that we'll be able to confirm that alongside, but primarily that funding has been used and set aside for projects such as Osborne Steps, for the Wroxall St John's works that are currently underway at the moment, and for those initial works that were done at Vittlefields as well. So there's been a spread. There's still work to be done with some of that funding, so we're carrying it forwards, but that's built into the programme that we will be sharing with you.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, does that include works that have been due and agreed under the previous relatively recent speed review?
Yep, there has been funding carry forward for allocated specifically for the recommendations set out of the island-wide speed limit review. Those recommendations, we're in the process of recruiting a project manager to lead on that. We're shortlisting and hopefully we'll have some in post relatively soon, along with a traffic manager, so we can take all of these forwards, and you will see we've got to then prioritise what's on those recommendations to take forwards, but we've got funding set from previous years and we've allocated a portion of the DFT funding for the next year as well for that project, because we know that that is a priority for the council to move forwards with those recommendations.
Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, to follow on from that, that's really helpful and very good to hear. I must declare an interest. One of the two speed review agreed areas goes past my house. So if you ever make a decision on that, I will step back. But secondly, and I've been raising this over quite a long period of time, there are a number of issues within my ward, and I know others, where there has been a long-term discussion between highways and island roads as to what should happen and responsibilities. When we spoke to the Island Roads management, we raised I raised two issues. I just wondered whether they'd progressed any further. The first one was in the area of Dunsbury Brook, which is a road collapsing towards a drain. The second one is Newtown, the main road into Newtown Town Lane, where there is a permanent barrier off part of the road as it slips towards basically a side bit of Newtown Estuary.
I must admit, I'm not personally aware of those individual schemes. However, I shall confirm that I will follow that and provide an update on those two particular points, definitely.
Thank you very much. Are we happy to move on, members, to next agenda item? Oh, Councillor Quirk. Okay, and welcome back, Councillor Quirk. Nice to see you back.
Just picking up from what Councillor Jarman said, it is a progress on actions. I think it's the opportunity to tell us when we're ahead of schedule, on schedule, behind schedule, and what's making it up, or what problems we've run into. And certainly looking at one of the biggest problems I've had in my ward over recent years is the flooding adjacent to the co-op in Shanklin. And the big issue there was everyone wanting someone else to pay for it. And the actual blockage was finally paid for by the co-op, but the original blockage was actually under the road. And I've got the camera footage of it where it's unblocked, no blockage at all underneath the co-op car park. Because it was blocked, that filled up with silt, and it cost the co-op tens of thousands of pounds to clear their bit of culvert. But it wasn't their fault that it was clogged up. And so it took a couple of years to do it. And I think things like that need to be flagged early on so that we can actually track what's happening and learn the lessons for the future. So I think there are, that's an important column, and maybe it needs to be a bit bigger and a bit more in depth.
Thank you, Councillor Quirk. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm happy to provide an update. I was not particularly involved with that project. I do understand that the council indeed funded some of those works. The biggest complication was where it lied and who was responsible for certain sections, because it was a system working back upstream along the fluvial path that was causing the issue. And so there was a damage to the, my understanding, the drainage under the co-op site as well, but it wasn't the root cause. There were other issues, they were resolved as well, including a collapsed retaining structure just the other side of Carter Street as well. So there was it was a complicated matter, because again, what we keep finding, and I'm sure that everyone is fully aware, we come across these issues where the records of ownership are not as clear as we would like them to have been. So therefore, a lot of work has to be undertaken by colleagues in legal, as well as ourselves, in determining whose ownership they are before we can step in and take those, undertake those works. Because quite rightly, we should be seeking the approval of the landowner, the registered landowner, to do that if they're registered, or undertake whom they could potentially understand. Because it might be the case that in some instances, landowner doesn't even realise they're responsible for sections of land. But in that instance, we will be looking at lessons learned, and I'm quite happy with the capital programme progresses that we provide a bit of an update on how that's all going. Unfortunately, in the case of the curve situation in Shanklin, that is a bit of a reaction, having to deal with a situation that's just got worse over a short period of time. There was a not long-standing issue, but it's got significantly worse following high rainfall. And so therefore it's something that we're certainly going to, take lessons learned, and something that we're going to have to deal with on a case-by-case basis when those things arise.
Thank you, Stuart. So if we're happy, we can move on now to our decisions, and we've got TRO Forest Hills, which we've already heard quite a bit about this evening already. Stuart, would you like to introduce this? And the committee, we do have Councillor Lever in the room this evening, who's a local member. So I will be inviting him to speak as well, with everyone's happy with that. It'll be good to use for context. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. This is in respect of, as discussed previously, development-related traffic regulation orders that proposes the introduction of restrictions on the roads in and around Forest Hills, Arthur Moody Drive, Broadwood Lane and Park Close in Gunville. The proposal is aiming to ensure safety for all road users while securing the movement of the increased traffic to and from the new development once it is under construction and occupied, by improving visibility at the junctions and regulating parking where it is safe to do so. The proposals were slightly split out. And so the notices with these there was 2 stages to it. Those which are required under the planning conditions with the planning permission approval. And there's another additional restrictions which following a safety audit undertaken by, or review undertaken by Island Roads technicians and engineers, they identified there were some other potential issues where the increased traffic at certain junction heads would require the removal of parking, because at the moment there is low vehicle movements at those junctions, but they would increase with the occupancy of the properties and also during construction, and so additional measures would have to go in there. So overall, there were slightly 2 different proposals, which resulted in a proposed net loss of on-street parking, some of which is mitigated through additional on-street parking within the development, which is of course connected directly onto Forest Hills. It's not a significant distance from, and similar to the arrangements to other branch roads along that route as well. But it is a planning condition. So therefore, it was all of the factors were considered by the planning authority when approving the permission, such as the impact on the character of the area, impact on neighbouring properties, impact on listed buildings, trees, ecology, highways considerations and other matters. With the highways considerations, this was identified following the comments and representations made by development control, and so therefore they were conditioned as part of this permission. So the planning committee approved the development to be granted permission, but with this condition attached, that they have to be secured and implemented prior to construction. And so that's the important point, is that these will not go in place until it is confident that, or developers confident that they will start the construction phase of this development as well.
Thank you very much. What does that look like, Mr. Chandler, that confident about construction beginning? What does that mean in practice?
It really
waiting outside to drive in, or
no, not quite, not quite that close. That there has been positive discussions between the local planning authority and the developer, that they've basically want to confirm that they've executed all of the conditions that apply for the planning permission. So they've satisfied all of those. They will then request that the traffic regulation orders and make arrangements for those to be implemented. And we know, because of the number of conditions applied to a development, they're not just going to do that at their cost unless the development is going forwards. And so therefore, that is the process in which it's similar to others. If we're thinking about Newport Football Ground, where certain orders were put in place prior to the commencement of the Newport Football Ground on the racecourse as well, such as reduced speed limit. So all of those have to be in place before it is occupied in that case, but in this case, construction.
Be some questions from the committee. I don't know whether the committee would like to hear from Councillor Lever first. Yep, everyone's in agreement. Councillor Lever, would you like to speak to the committee, and any other questions you have for officers as well?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak, as I'm not an official committee member. And apologies, I did want to raise some of this with the committee beforehand and officers, but certain information has only come to light this week for myself, so I'm raising it now. Just firstly, I do agree with some of the sentiments raised by residents during public questions, and just to raise, I also object to both aspects of the TRO due to some of the objections raised. So ideally, I would like to see it rejected. Seeing as Gunville has already seen a number of parking restrictions put in place over the past few years, and it will only exacerbate the issue of dwindling on-street parking. bar a rejection happening though, I'd just like to raise the committee's attention to a few factors which are emerging regarding confidence in the development even going ahead, and therefore potentially rendering the TRO wholly unnecessary. As you can see in your committee report, paragraph 13 and 14 remind us that no development can take place until a drainage strategy for the land is submitted and approved by the planning authority. To date, a drainage strategy is still yet to be submitted. And in addition, as was alluded to during public questions, the site is or was recently put up for sale. We've also recently had hydro and soil experts give verbal, but not official, I concede, comment on the unsuitability of the land for development due to its current propensity for severe flooding and saturation, which may now point to why a drainage strategy is still outstanding. I'm speculating, but it is a question that's being raised, and the potential sale of the land. Because of these factors, if the committee still want to approve the TRO, I would inquire around the possibility of a conditional block on its implementation until a drainage strategy is submitted and approved by the planning authority, just to give the council assurance that development will in fact happen, and therefore confidence that any cost, time and community upset is for a purpose. So yeah, I'll leave the committee with that now. I don't know what's possible here, but I'll obviously be guided by officers. But I just would like the committee to consider what I've mentioned there with any decision making.
Thank you, Councillor Lever. Councillor John, if you just hold your thought, I'll just get ask Stuart what you think about that, because obviously there could be a net gain from a drainage perspective, because there's so many troubles with flooding up there. I think we're all aware of that. So that was the hope. This development, if it goes ahead, would help alleviate some of those issues that experience up there. But if there's no drainage strategies being submitted yet, that seems to be a bit of concern, maybe, or not. Anyway, I'll let you respond directly to Councillor Lever's.
Of course, and yeah, I was highly conscious of this matter in previous discussions with the then proposed developer DN Associates in relation to this, that there was that discussion around the measures that they could take in their drainage scheme could actually go some way to alleviate the problems that have been seen and unfortunately impacted those residents in that area. And so that's, was something that we were keen to discuss and move forwards. And again, this is why that condition is within the planning approval as well, because it is recognised that this has been a long-standing issue. Development is right in the path of what has been a long-standing issue. So therefore, it's essential that that comes forwards, prior to commencement as well. And so the order, I can't speak on behalf of the planning authority or the planning committee. However, I would anticipate that all conditions in order are actually addressed prior to final confirmation that construction can commence. So therefore, this is a pre-commencement condition associated with that application. Therefore, I would anticipate, unless I'm advised otherwise, that they would be meeting that condition as a requirement before any of this would happen.
To your question, Councillor Lever.
Yes, so Stuart, sorry, just to be absolutely clear, a drainage strategy would need to be submitted and approved before the TRO would be implemented.
We can, in regards to the conditions, if we, I would need to check with the planning authority, but I would anticipate that unless the drainage strategy has been approved and agreed, there is no confirmation that construction can even begin. Therefore, there is no need or requirement for the TROs. So therefore, it makes sense to operate in the order of the conditions are set. So this is condition 5 in respect to drainage, and condition, I think it's 12 or 13 in relation to the TRO. So I would say, I would assume the sensible approach in respect to this matter would be to meet the prior conditions ahead of this one.
Anything else to add, Councillor Lever?
That it's reassuring to hear that. Just I wouldn't be doing my job probably though if I didn't follow that with the assumptions. Great. I would, for clarity for the community and a bit of reassurance, it'd be good to get that confirmed that is in the case if possible. Yeah.
think just to reiterate that, I think if there's anything we can add to our recommendation, which is on page 15, if there's any, are we legally able to reinforce that message or those conditions through our recommendation for the TRO? I'll leave that question hanging for a minute because I'll bring in Councillor Jarman and then I've got Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Chair. So the policy of the council is that we don't implement TRO solely to enable development. That's a simple statement of it. So my question is, on that basis, what is the pre-existing safety condition which existed, and why was there never a TRO application made to address that pre-existing safety requirement?
Yeah, no, I agree. The TRO policy as it stands is clearly sets out that unless under exceptional circumstances, we wouldn't be looking to implement a TRO for the purposes of enabling a development. In this instance, again, the condition is applied based upon the anticipated movement of the additional traffic on the road, not a current issue. So therefore, the movement of construction vehicles, given the development has been granted planning permission on the commencement of the construction, measures need to be in place to ensure that those additional movements of probably larger vehicles as well, and construction vehicles, is safe to do so. So it's not to address a current safety issue, it is to address the potential of a safety issue, given the additional movements of construction vehicles and additional traffic once the properties are occupied.
Councillor Jarman.
So there is no pre-existing, without this development, there is no pre-existing safety issue which has previously been identified. So what you're saying is that these measures are solely being put in place to enable that development and the consequences arising from it.
It's not to enable, because it's the other way around. Planning permission has been granted in this instance, and therefore the conditions applied and the TRO required as a result of the permissions being granted. We don't consider the Highways Authority as to whether, it's not within the Highways Authority to recommend or not recommend a development other than the impacts on the network, in which in this instance those technical expertise from development control have recommended additional safety measures.
I'm sorry, Stuart, that wasn't my question. My question is, without this development, what are the pre-existing safety conditions that require this TRO?
These TROs are not required for any pre-existing safety issues. However, there was a request.
Therefore, they are contrary to policy.
They're unless it's considered under exceptional circumstances, and that's for the committee to decide.
Thank you. That's very clear and very important.
Councillor Quirk.
I think it's quite clear in planning terms that there's a very real issue in terms of the drainage solution, and it's far from obvious that there will be an approved system for drainage. And although we might assume that this won't go ahead if it doesn't have that approval, I would like it to be a bit more explicit rather than just hoping that it'll work out okay. Is there a way that we can make it more explicit that the TRO can only be implemented following acceptance and sign off of the drainage solution?
That's what I've asked the officer to consider, but thank you for backing that up, Councillor Quirk. But did anyone else have anything to add? Yes, Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this question is going to be able to be answered by the officers, but just wondering around the planning application itself. I believe it's been approved subject to this TRO and the drainage scheme. That obviously has a timescale. So I just wondered when the application was approved, just sort of thinking about timescales here, would it have to come, is it likely that it's going to have to come back for reapproval if we're getting too close to the 3-year rule?
Yeah, I completely agree that this traffic regulation order is linked to that permission. If that permission passes its expiry, then this order then stands down, because it can't be, it is conditioned as a part of this. It's not, as Councillor Jarman quite rightly pointed out, it is not there to address a safety issue as it is at the moment. And we would not be, and given that this is all to be funded by the developer, the Isle of Wight Council and the public person should not be seeking to fund these measures unless there's a real need for it. And in this instance, there is not determined to be a requirement at this time.
Chair, just follow. So do we, for information, what is the date that it was approved? So therefore, what's the 3-year date? I appreciate there's no planning officers here, but I just wondered if that was.
I think it's a report somewhere.
Buried in the-
It looks like from the prefix it's 22, so I'm not sure. So it looks like 2022, but I would have to refer
We're
back to
getting
it.
nods from Councillor Lever. So I'm thinking it does sort of almost sound like they're applying. We're doing the TRO now because we were expecting there to be imminent works. That's what it feels like. However, there is anecdotal evidence that this may not be it. But I think what we're looking for, I'll bring you back in a minute, Councillor Brake and Councillor Stewart. I think what we are looking for is a way we can give everyone some comfort within our process we are here, that the TRO will not be implemented until we're absolutely sure that work is going to be commencing. And actually the timescale is down to the developer, isn't it? If they run out of time, don't they? We're not stopping that or hindering that at all. Councillor Blake, and then I've got.
Chair, entirely. This doesn't sort of predicate the decision we're making today. I think it's just a bit of information for all, just so everyone's aware of the process, for residents' benefit more than anything. Just understand what timescales have to be adhered to, and what sort of things might happen that may stop other things happening. But yeah.
Councillor Lever's indicating behind that he can assist with that.
If what I'm looking at is correct, it was October 2022. So presumably we'd have until October. Oh yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's the same development that's been rumbling on for a while, isn't it? Yeah.
Can we just? We'll need to double check that date then, because.
Chair, it may be a case that have they done any works to pass stage 1? So I appreciate there's no planning officers in the room, but I'm sort of wondering what's the dates there.
To fundamentally change our decision this evening, though.
Correct, it doesn't. But,
It's just
It's of
useful
interest.
background, yeah. So I'm going to bring Councillor Jarman. Well, actually, I did have Councillor Stewart, Councillor Jarman, if that's all right.
Sorry, can I just, and I think I'm probably going down the same line that everybody else is. If a TRO is agreed, who actually puts it into force? Who makes the managerial decision to actually implement that TRO? And if it is the Highways Authority, can we instruct the Highways Authority as a committee to not implement that until Planning Department have confirmed that they have an agreed drainage plan?
We did go over that, but if you'd like some more confirmation from Stuart.
It's specifically for
We talked about
highways. Do they?
drainage.
Do you have that capability? Or sorry, authority, should I say?
Yeah, it's a bit of a complicated issue, because where it's tied up between both the planning authority and the highways authority, that though I would anticipate that before anything can happen, all conditions that have been set in respect of this application have to be met. So therefore, before anything is done, only then can the developer come to us to actually go, right, we've now got the conditions, we're going to go ahead. We're going to implement, because we then book their road space to do the works, and they have to provide a supplier. So again, they get works permits to undertake that work. So therefore, they would have to apply for us to implement these works. So therefore, they can only implement them if they've met all of the conditions that are set out within the planning application. I was just thinking about it and talking through a colleague. It's not something we could condition on the order itself, but it is something that we could certainly have in agreement that the conditions all have to be met before we can actually physically put it on the ground.
Are you saying, sure, that if we could put a sentence under the recommendation, so it doesn't actually interfere with the TRO itself, as the i.e. committee approves proposed restrictions, blah, 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 but we could put a sentence underneath that in our decision, or not? Sorry.
Apologies, yeah. Thank you, Chair. I would need to look into that in detail. I think not at this stage, but yeah, definitive answer.
Okay, but you believe, well, you've expressed it's in the papers that there's enough a reassurance nothing will happen until all of the conditions have been met, including the submission and approval of the planning, the drainage strategy.
Yeah, it's also recognised and the developer would have to do a fair bit of outlay for the actual works to be done and booking the road space and so forth. So, you know, in these instances, it's unlikely that a commercial body, a developer, would be looking to undertake abortive costs unless they knew they were proceeding forwards, because those costs should then be met by what they generate through the development themselves. So it'd be, whilst we can't be certain, we would anticipate from a commercial position they wouldn't take that risk.
Worst comes to the worst, that the TRO is implemented, work, say, stalls or doesn't happen. At that point, you could make a decision to reverse if they're not required.
Absolutely, and this goes back to the comments within the report that these, even upon implementation of the restrictions as proposed, we will continue to evaluate and monitor them. If they're not required, such as the development company don't go forwards and they've actually put them in place, we can then revoke them. And potentially, if the developer doesn't take it forwards and they've done that, we can potentially seek recompense for that revocation as well, because it's their decision not to proceed with the development.
Cool. Councillor John, apologies, you're waiting very patiently.
That's right, Chair, to give us a little bit of time to check. So obliged to Councillor Lever for his diligence on his laptop very quickly there. So we know when the expiry date for the planning permission was now in October 25. We've looked on the list of documents on the site. There's no commencement certificate been issued, and therefore the planning permission would be automatically void as of October 25. I'm not sure whether legally we can approve a condition to an expired planning permission. I'd say perhaps we can get some legal advice on that. But given the 3-year period ran to October 25 and there is no commencement certificate, then the planning application would automatically fall. And with it, if the planning application falls, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that the conditions associated with the planning application would also fall. And I don't think legally, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think legally we can agree a condition of an expired planning application. So people are looking. I can see very quickly at their laptops.
I'll bring in Joseph again. I think this is a separate legal process though. But let's hear it from.
Thank you, Chair.
Let's hear it from the lawyer, not from me.
So we're just checking now. I can answer this. Oh. No, no, thank you.
The 106 agreement, 106 agreement is 2 years.
Sorry.
No, sorry, no, I need to.
Yeah.
Thank you. Apologies.
No. So we're not able to take questions from the public at the moment. Yeah, thank you.
I'm just answering the question. It's not expired because the 106 agreement didn't get signed until the planning was 2 years old.
Okay, I'm just going to hand over to our lawyer, Joseph. But thank you.
So yeah, apologies. We're going to check what the situation is, but my understanding is this is a separate process from a decision-making legal point. You can give regard to other factors, give them the weight you want to. So yeah, it is separate. So we're just going to check that, but my understanding is it wouldn't mean that we can't make the decision today.
That'll be my understanding as well.
Just for clarification, so we can approve a TRO on an expired planning application? Or one for which is
we don't know entirely if it's. I mean, there could be other, as we just heard, there could be other things going on that means it hasn't expired or they're looking to get it extended. All sorts of things could be happening. But I think so. I'm going to bring Councillor Lever very quickly, then we'll come back to our officers.
Sorry, just so obviously I appreciate there may be other fact finding to do, but the decision notice itself on the application says, in pursuance of its powers under the aforementioned acts, give notice of the decision made on the 25th of October 2022 to grant planning permission in accordance with the application, plans and particulars submitted and subject to compliance with the following conditions. And number one is the development hereby permitted shall be begun before the expiration of 3 years from the date of this permission.
Do you want to add anything?
Apologies, I've not reviewed this in detail beforehand. So my understanding of the process where we are at the moment is that this is a separate decision to be made, and you can take into account that as a factor in that decision, but it doesn't mean that you can't take the decision. It is a separate statutory process, but I completely take the point that it's a large part of that.
Yeah. What I mean, my understanding again is that it's a completely separate process. It has gone through all the legal process, and there's been public consultation and so on, and it will not be enacted unless the development goes ahead. So if it has expired and doesn't go ahead, then it's not going to happen. However, I've got our monitoring officer on the line. I think the question is to Chris on the line: is the committee safe legally to make this decision today, even if the planning permission has in fact expired, which we are not entirely certain about? Thank you, Chris. Staring intently, or I froze. Are you back again? Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, sorry for the internet disruption. There's obviously some uncertainty at the moment regarding the status of the planning application. From what I've understood, which has been said this evening, is that there's a standard 3-year timescale within which to commence development. I don't know the facts as to whether or not any commencement has been undertaken, because obviously you just have to start digging a trench, and it can be deemed to be a start of the planning permission. So I don't know the full facts there. As my colleague Joseph has quite rightly said, this is obviously a separate statutory regime, as the Highway Authority look at the traffic regulation order application to see whether it meets those statutory criteria for making a lawful TRO. So the planning aspect, there are some interconnections, so to speak, in the separate regime. I would say to the committee that really you need to be looking at the circumstances behind the need for making a TRO, and if you're in any doubt, then need more information, then the only safe course would be to adjourn for clarification.
Thank you for that. I'm guessing, can we get that clarification at this time of day, given our planning team are not on the line? And I was just in my head, if the planning permission has expired, we make a decision today. If a new planning permission has to be brought forward, it'll have a completely it'll be null and void. We'll have to start over again, essentially, won't they? So I don't know if it's unsafe. That's my question. Is it unsafe if we make decisions? I don't think we're going to be able to adjourn and get the answers. I don't think because it's the time of day it is. We don't have our. I mean.
Yeah, I think
there's a risk of not making a decision as well.
Yeah,
so I need to understand what they are.
Indeed, and
I'll bring you in a minute, second.
Yeah, in the absence of colleagues from the planning authority to advise as whether what actually constitutes a commencement of meeting the conditions, because again that might be the case. They're seeking to meet the conditions set aside with the planning permission. That in itself it keeps by the 25th of October means that they're actually meeting the requirements within the three-year period. But we'd need to, that would need to be tested. However, if it was found that the application was not valid, was no longer live, this decision would be void because it's tied solely to that condition. We would have to make the decision, because it's a separate decision, to revoke that order prior to implementation, because it is a separate order, it's a separate process. As Joe was saying, one is planning authority, one is highways authority, but effectively we wouldn't be putting in place because it would be on the condition that the development commences.
I'll bring you in a minute, Councillor Bates. So my understanding where I'm at right this second is that we're not able to take a break to get the information. The way I feel is that it feels it's more unsafe not to make a decision, given the process has already gone through the legal process through the TRO route, the highways route, and if it, as you explained, if it has the planning permission has expired, then this decision is null and void anyway. But as long as we're not on illegal, unsafe ground, that is what the committee. But you won't put the committee in that situation where we're making an unsafe decision. I think that's what the committee really wants to know. Councillor Blake.
I think I agree with you, Chair. I think we have to take the decision at face value, and we have to trust that officers have put a paper in front of us that we are allowed to vote on, and we are acting perfectly within the information we've got to vote on the decision that's in front of us. And I don't think that puts us in an unsafe position, regardless of what the actual situation is.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Councillor Jarman.
So I'm grateful to the monitoring office for his advice here and his recommendation of deferral. I think if we don't have the full information before us, and indeed the indication from what Councillor Lever has read out from presumably the council website, would seem to be fairly definitive regarding the permission having expired, I think it would be rather perverse of us to try and make a decision without the full information, knowing that if we make that decision, we would have to reconvene to unmake it at some later date. Sounds a very odd route to follow. So my recommendation, and I'll propose a motion at this stage, which is that we defer the item, awaiting that clarification from the planning department as to the status of the planning application, and that we do not make a decision on this until we have that clarification as recommended by the monitoring officer. And I'll look for a seconder for that.
Monitoring officer wasn't. I don't think he said defer decision. I think he said take a recess to get clarification. That's what he said.
He said adjourn.
Adjourn, but
Okay.
actually adjourn the whole meeting. Adjourn.
Adjourn the item. So my recommendation is we defer it based on the monitoring officer's recommendation until we have the full information. And if indeed then the planning application has expired and there is no commencement certificate as indicated by the website, then there would be no need for this to be made or indeed unmade at some later date. And as I said, I'll look for a seconder for that. Good.
Councillor Jarman, and they've got Councillor Adams has seconded that. I'm still in the same position, actually. I need to know what are the risks of us not making a decision tonight, please. Can answer that.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. I would say that it is the committee's decision. If it's not felt that it's a safe decision to be made and that further information is required that we can't present at this point in time, then the matter to recommendation from the officer will be to defer.
Would you bring that back to, we could have an extraordinary meeting of this committee if you got that information within the next day? Would you? I'm just wondering about the timescales of this, of what's needed. I mean, do we, if we let it go too far without a decision, where does that legally leave us? And also, where does it leave us within the process times? I usually have to start over again if we would delay it too far. We've got to make a decision. I'm not saying the decision has to be made on this. That's what I'm trying to say, but we need to know the timescales.
Yeah, I would advise that the TRO, from the point of going out to consultation, is the proposal is still live for 2 years, and the Highways Authority has to make a decision by that time. So therefore, we've got time to take into account all of the considerations, and I wouldn't at this point given the position where we are and the availability of all committee members to make a decision, I would recommend deferral till later.
So, Chair, I'm not minded to back Councillor Jarman's motion on this, but I'm confused as to why a deferral is the best course of action, given the fact that if we do make this decision in good faith, and it's not the case that we believe, that this would all fall regardless if that was not the case. So a deferral, and bear in mind we're in a committee system, not that would be going to a meeting at best in June, and that may be a risk for the development and for ongoing process. So I don't see the benefit, and I'm entirely sympathetic to Councillor Jarman's view on the situation, that this is potentially a decision that can't be made, but that's not going to achieve the outcome if the situation isn't that we think it would, or I believe it would be the best outcome.
And I'm with you actually, because I think there's no risk. There's no risk because if the permission has fallen now, you know, is no longer active, then this isn't going to happen, and I have to start over again. If it's identical, of course, the TRO is very specific, and if there's one change on the development of a new planning application, this all changes. I have to start all over again. It's very, very specifically linked to that, to the plans there. So I don't see there's a risk. I'm just more concerned about the legal risk. That's why I've asked our senior lawyers in the room for advice on that, because what we don't want to do as a committee is make an unsafe decision. Anything that's unsound or ultra vires, we do not want to be going down that route, and that's what so I'm with Councillor Blake. I think we should make a decision, because on balance, you know, if the planning commission has fallen, or not fallen, has run out of time, this is all done and void anyway. But I'll bring you back in a minute, Councillor John. I'm sorry, Councillor Adams, you wanted to speak. Do you want to hear from Monitoring Officer first, or would you like to go first, Councillor Adams?
Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to come in quickly. I think after recent events within the council, many times as committees and members, and just as members of the council, we're in meetings and we're told we should listen to our monitoring officer. And I believe in this case, we should take our monitoring officer's advice. And if we vote on it, I will be abstaining, because I think there's vagaries here and I'm concerned. I actually partly agree with what you're saying about taking the vote, but I'm reluctant, Julie, because I feel, would we be acting legally? That's my concern.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'm going to come back to you, Chris, if you can advise us that we're not able to take a break or adjourn and get the information we need so we can make a decision this evening, but are we safe to make a decision, or what is your advice legally, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
As clearly concise as you can be, if that's all right. Thank you.
Indeed, my advice is to defer on the basis that you do not have all the relevant information in front of you, as indeed is confirmed in the conversation where you're saying if something is a position, we need to bring clarity to it, and therefore my advice is to defer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that absolute clarification. So I think that basically is a nub of your proposal, isn't it, Councillor Jarman? Yeah. And if we do
recommendation of the monitoring officer and the transport strategy manager, and I think that's quite clear officer advice and legal advice.
And members, you know, obviously I think we can reconvene this committee if needed. This isn't anything that would come under the election period rules. I don't know.
We would check that, Chair, but also it is the fact that from the time of consultation, there is 2 years to make this decision. So we can gather all of that information and come back to you either prior to the pre-election period starting, or if necessary in the first committee after the election. So we do have that time to have that surety.
Thank you very much. Right, well, after all of that, all our questions, and everyone coming in, we're now going to defer this item. So, but I'm going to go for the motion. Councillor Jarmus, we're going to vote on that. So, Councillor Jarmus, put that that motion forward, seconded by Councillor Adams. So, all those in favour deferral. That's everybody, I think. Somewhat reluctantly, because obviously we do make decisions, but I think given the excellent advice we've had from our legal team today, I think we were left with no other choice but to do that. Maybe in future we should invite one of our planning colleagues, if there are TROs linked with planning application. I think that might be a good point.
Thank you, Chair. We'll take, yeah, we will note that and invite our colleagues along.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone in the gallery who came along. Nice seeing you, Amy. Bye. Of course, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the agenda if you'd like to, but otherwise, then safe travels home.
I'm going to the Portland Inn. Thank you very much.
Councillor Lever. Members, I'm going to just get us back on track now. Let's get back to my agenda. I think what we should do is, now I've had all that excitement about the TRO, I think we should bring forward, it's not a kind of decision-ish item, is our performance management. So as performance improvement Q3, so that's agenda item 8. If we bring that forward, is everyone happy while I do that? Good, okay. Was any, which officer was going to introduce this? Anyone? Or should we just take it as read? Any questions on it?
Yeah, no, normally, Chair, we would take questions from members on the assumption that with it being published with the papers, they'd had a look through. So there isn't a specific report to read through, but we can certainly answer any questions that members may have. And if they haven't had a chance to look at it, we can take written questions to respond to.
So members, yes. So Councillor Stewart, would you like to ask a question or comment? Yeah.
My apologies. I stopped myself talking, which is always a good idea. Thank you for this report. It's very helpful. There's a lot of very useful information in it. As the committee asked me to be chair of the Floating Bridge Working Party, I've taken particular interest in this. Can I just confirm, with regard to the performance report, I think it's page 57 and number 20 of the council performance report, where it talks about the floating bridge meeting 100% of its scheduled hours operation. That refers to the hours excluding maintenance and outage, and also does not reference the number of trips per hour. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor Stewart. It is the scheduled hours, which is 19 hours a day, 7 days a week, taking out planned maintenance, which is programmed in at the beginning of the year. So that gives us the 100% figure. Obviously, planned maintenance is notice is given of that, so people are aware that the floating bridge will be out of service during those times for its twice yearly maintenance schedule.
Other questions, Councillor Stewart?
Just a brief supplementary, and it is brief, yep. Promise. There is no doubt, and I'll start with saying that it is clear that the floating bridge staff and the officers around it and the organisations involved in maintaining that floating bridge have made an enormous effort in keeping it running as is. You know, it's been a major engineering task to get it to that position. Is it fair to say that the average number of scheduled trips, of trips per hour is just slightly above 3 now?
The average number is 3.19 per hour.
I thought that was the number, but I didn't want to say it because knowing me, I probably got it the wrong figure. Thank you very much. That's all I wanted.
Councillor Bake.
Thank you, Chair. I'm absolutely delighted to hear that the floating bridge is by far the best performing ferry we have on the island. But a couple of little points from that thing. I mean, first of all, there's a slight Freudian slip in the paper, given that Shanklin Lift has a reduction in lift income as a result of agreed reduction, which I'm sure local residents may be in agreement of. But I'm sure it means an agreed reduction rather than just a tiny little point. My actual points around the car parking and in the budget we put into the narrative because we weren't able to put it into the actual line item of the budget, but around the tourist parking charges and the fact that since 2022 when they were put up, and also the scaling of the prices went from getting cheaper per day the longer you bought to £10 a day, whether you bought 2 days or 14 days. And the fact that since we've done that, we have taken £30,000 less a year than we did previously. So I was wondering that was put into our amendments only to reverse that charge. So I was wondering, in terms of process, how does that get done? Is that done automatically by officers having been approved in the budget, or is that something this committee has to approve first?
So if it's been approved in the budget, then officers will work on it and they will bring the outcome of that to the committee if there is a decision. And obviously there will be a financial impact, whether it be an increase or a decrease for that projected decision. So we would look to bring a report to outline that. If it then obviously exceeds the remit then of this committee, then we would have to recommend that it goes to Policy, Finance and Resource Committee. But the simple answer to your question is yes. If that has been an accepted budgetary change, then the officers will start to work on that in the new financial year.
Thank you for that. I mean, just as a supplementary point more than a question, that we need to look at these things more as business decisions, and that would have appeared in a budget line item as an increase in revenue, because if we've had X number of tourist permits sold and we're putting them up by £1 an hour or £1 a day, that would be an extra, I don't know, say £10,000, but it has resulted in a reduction because they've been put up so much and no one wants to pay for them. And also where the sliding scale's taking out. So I say when we sort of look at these things, we need to look at them in a business holistic view rather than just as a line item. But I say it's a supplementary point on the question.
Councillor Bates, you're right about the holistic view. Of course, we've got to, not visit Isle of Wight and the Isle of Wight Council as a, I think at least long after I've been a councillor, had been a, a policy of encouraging sustainable transport, tourism. So how do we know that is directly linked to the price of the pass, where it could actually be people are choosing to bring, use the buses or bring their bikes over as a tourist choice rather than purely being connected to the price of it and not selling. They could be selling less because there's less demand. I'm just saying it's all part of the mix, isn't it? But I take your point.
What I'm saying is that would have been put down in the budget as an increase in revenue, and it has resulted to a direct decrease in revenue. So these are sort of decisions we're taking, and that would have potentially balanced the budget back in 22, and it's resulted in a negative. I say so.
Yeah. So we'll see if it gets implemented. We'll see what that comes out at the end, won't we? Obviously. Any other questions from the committee, Councillor Jarman?
Just an observation. I think it's unlikely to be transferred to the buses because the bus number was actually down 70,000 journeys anyway. So if we look at the car parking being down 2,000 transactions, the bus journeys were down 70,000 transactions. So I don't think it's displacement from one to the other. I think they're both down.
It's hard, isn't it? It's not, nothing's ever binary on this. It was just a comment I made that we have been having invested lots of money in encouraging sustainable travel with tourism. That's all.
I agree with the chair. They could be walking and cycling, which would be
wonderful. Lovely green link project as well, haven't we? Happening as well to do just that. So there'll be hopefully people walking and cycling. So we've got some really impressive figures here. Did any other members want to say anything? I was just picking up Mr. Mears, we've got the Alex, we've got the visits to museums down. Does that include when Dinosaur Isle was closed as well? So yeah, but it's now reopened, hasn't it? With
Yes, Dinosaur Isle reopened yesterday.
we've got a new exhibit, haven't we, as well? The special Isle of Wight dinosaur. Yes. Councillor Jarman.
I did have one question, which is on the amount of space that we've got, retail space, it's down minus 1,336 square meters, but it doesn't tell me what percentage that is, or is that a very small amount of loss on the island? What was the actual starting figure and the ending figure? Normally at the bottom right-hand corner, we get what the actual number is, but there isn't any on these to scale that. So I don't know if that's a 10% loss of retail space or a 1%.
Oh, sure.
I'll have to check that. I'm not aware where they got that information from.
Okay.
I would like to point out that the one alarming thing that is in there is it does show it is a mistake. I'm surprised nobody's picked it up, but it is showing that there's an overspend on regeneration of 200,000. That is not the case since we had our restructure. That was a figure that surprised me. That 200,000 relates to overspend in our properties, which are no longer managed by this committee.
Any other comments, questions from the committee? Go on, Councillor Jarman.
So I just took it as the actual figure that we'd overspent rather than it being an error. So if it is an error, how is the £200,000 external overspend actually funded?
I'm not 100% sure that will be matter for property. They're buildings that property have had in their portfolio for a number of years. So I would imagine it'd be funded out of that budget area.
Yes, that's a question that goes to the PFR committee, so this no longer comes under our.
I'm happy to, Chair, but I could ask if that's referred, please, to the PFR committee, because they probably would take it at face value and not know that it was a misplaced figure.
Well, you're not going to be surprised for me that I'll make a comment on the wonderful green lights we have there, which is from a overperformance of One Leisure. I mean, it's just fantastic the way they've recovered since COVID, and supporting the health of our islanders. It's brilliant. So we're well over target, especially the total visits to show that people are repeat visits going back and back. So and to have 7,584 people with a one card investing in themselves is brilliant as well. And I think people don't keep going back if they don't get a good service or a good product. So I think everyone who works for One Leisure and supports it throughout the council, because it is a council service, needs recognition of that. And our libraries are up as well, so all looking very good. So has anyone else got anything to say on this item before we move backwards? I think just for noting, isn't it, anyway? So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing Q4 in due course. Right, let's get back to the agenda. So now we're on to some verbal updates. We've got, and they're all for noting. So the first one is we're going back to item 7 now, floating bridge. We have the chair of the working group present as well, and we've also got Michelle in the room. Michelle, would you like to kick us off, and then if anything else,
I'll defer
Councillor Stewart can
Michelle as the officer who has the most current information.
Yeah. Is that okay? I mean, I can start and then you can take over if there's any other information.
I think if you start, and then
okay,
Councillor Stewart can come in if there's anything he wants to add.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. I'm presenting a verbal update on the progress of the floating bridge project that we've been working on. So you'll be aware that we brought a report to the committee on the 16th of October 2025, and from that a new recommendation was for further work to be carried out to assess the market interest around the supply of a new vessel via a working party open to committee members, officers, and local qualified stakeholders to act as a floating bridge project board. We also brought a briefing paper to the committee on the 22nd of January, and this is to provide an update since that time. So the working group is now well established with members of the Isle of Wight Council and representatives from East Cowes Town Council and Cowes Town Councils, plus Captain John Kidd as the Harbour Master representative. We've met regularly, so we meet at least monthly to review the progress as well as the objectives for the future of the floating bridge. We have independent volunteers who both have had experience within the marine industry. One of those volunteers has now stepped back, but the other one is still engaged with us. And the main piece of work was that we put out to tender that piece of work to have the objectives or the market testing and to have those objectives defined for the floating bridge. So that contract was awarded to Holder, who is a maritime technical advisor, and they are now doing that market testing on our behalf. The market testing exercise is open until the 31st of March. I can tell you that there have been multiple responses to that. So there will be a lot for the working group to look at on its next meeting on the 18th of April, because those responses will be, that exercise will be closed and we can then evaluate those responses. So that's it in summary, really, unless any members have any questions, or Councillor Stewart would like to add anything.
Councillor Stewart, would like to add anything to that? And thank you very much, Michelle, for that update.
That's why I'd like to say thank you to Michelle and all the people who have appeared before with that group. It's worked extremely effectively. Certainly the meeting that we had in East Cowes was quite lively, and I think it's moved forward. I think this is clearly an appropriate way of actually trying to deal with the issue that we face of a floating bridge, which doesn't really do what we would like it to do. I think that's polite. But I don't really have anything to add to what Michelle has put forward. She's put forward all the relevant information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from members? Yes, Councillor Adam.
Sorry, I don't think this is going to be too popular a question, but I feel I need to ask it. Considering the council's finances, I didn't support the replacement of the floating bridge. I went on the tour and I looked at what was there, and it seems to me that what we've got in place at the moment is much improved from the original vessel, much improved. And these figures in front of us here, very fine there. I just wonder with all this, and before we take this final leap and spend all this money in replacing the vessel, is there going to be a viability study into the remaining lifespan of the existing floating bridge? Because I think that's an important factor. I think it's more important considering the dire straits we're in financially as a council. And I think that's something that seriously needs to be looked at.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. So at the moment, there is a sum of money that is earmarked for a potential new floating road bridge, but it is not ring fenced, and it is subject to how the council has to react to if it goes into exceptional financial circumstances. So that is where we stand with the financial position. As officers, we are following the strategy, the directive that was given by Cabinet in March 2024, and that was very clearly that a new floating road bridge, I get my words mixed up, a new floating bridge was required. And what we are doing at the moment is we are going out to the market to find out basically the art of the possible, what can be done, because we have a brief that was given by committee on the 16th of October, which was for obviously access for vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, for a number of crossings per hour. And so we are going out to the market to find out if that is possible. So at the moment, we haven't committed to purchasing a new floating bridge. We are finding out what could be purchased or what could be developed in order to then take that to the next stage. So that's where we are at the moment. And obviously, as a member of the committee, if the committee makes a recommendation that you would like that to be part of the evaluation, then that is within your gift as a committee to make. We're following obviously what was the recommendation from the October meeting.
Thank you. If I might just add in, yeah.
I would like that very much. I think we need a viability study into the remaining life of the existing vessel. That's very important that we know that before we spend any money. Just in my opinion, I think it's something we need to consider, because it's not the same vessel. It's not the same vessel. And I appreciate the people in Cowes. They've had lots of problems. Yes, they have had lots of problems, but I believe we've resolved many of those already. And I think in regards of our best value for money, to achieve that, we need to consider the remaining life of the existing vessel. Just my opinion, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. It's not just about the performance we see on the performance list we just had from the Q3 performance. It's also the financial aspect of this particular vessel, which is outside of the norm, if we might say, in a negative way. But I think we are mid-process right now, so I wouldn't be welcoming any other committee decisions right now off the hoof to divert what we're doing right now. I don't think that is appropriate at all. We need to follow through where we are right now, because we're basically in a legal process anyway, aren't we, inviting these tenders in. So I would advise against changing the parameters of what we're doing right now. That would be my position, because we'll be having a report back, seeing what the art is possible, then we'll be discussing, and we'll be doing it through the group that's already set up. If that group looks at it and says actually we need to reevaluate, I think that is a completely appropriate point of time with people around the table to make that decision, bring that to the committee in future. But I think right now, this minute, I wouldn't be advising that we change parameters of what we're doing right now at all. But maybe I misunderstood you.
No, that's absolutely fine, Chair. That is your decision. So my next sort of part to Councillor Adams would have been that the comments that he made would need to come through you as Chair, as a request as like a member's question. So ask you as the Chair if you would want to pursue that course of action. So as the working group and the lead officers, we will follow the recommendations that are given until such time that those recommendations change.
So I've got Councillor Jarman and Councillor Blake waiting. So Councillor, was that on that particular item you want to come back on? Do you mind if that's okay? Everyone,
I was simply going to say we had all of the figures which the officers produced over a long period of time on what was the current position. The current floating bridge working party will produce new figures, but we're not putting a lot of council money into it, just time and effort, and obviously the employment of holder, which is it's a cost, but it's not a massive cost in all things. So when that comes back, you are entirely right. We have to look at the whole viability of what is on offer from the market and what we already have. So there is no final decision about what we do yet. Once we have the responses at basically the end of the month, the next incarnation of this particular committee will then have to make a decision as to which way they want to go.
I'm going to bring Councillor Jarman in.
So it's nice to see 100% achievement. Always nice to have that 100 figure. The question is at what cost? So what is the net loss that the floating bridge is making at the moment, in terms of, given that that's subsidised by us as a council, how much money are we as a council having to put into the floating bridge every month on average? I can see people diving for their laptops already.
No, I know this off by heart.
Good. I knew.
So I don't need to go to the laptop. So at the moment, the revenue, the ticket price, the ticket sales from the floating bridge sits between 700 and 800,000 pounds per annum, and it costs 1.6 million pounds to run the floating bridge. So that's a clearly documented fact. I know that we have discussed this in previous meetings. I think what it's important to understand is that additional 700,000 is not as a result of reactive maintenance, unplanned maintenance, or the floating bridge breaking down. That is the costs that it costs to run. So when the review of the Floating Bridge 6 took place by the local economic local enterprise, local economic partnership who funded it, they made certain recommendations about an increase in staff, which we obviously took on board because they were the funders. And then the Harbour Commission introduced the segregation. So there have been increased costs over the last few years. So it's not the fact that there is maintenance that we are not expecting, like the rebuild of the hydraulic system that took place in 2021. Those costs are all accounted for costs that would be the cost that it costs to run any floating bridge in that harbour.
So by supplementary, just to clarify that, thank you for the answer, Michelle, it's very good. So the bottom line is we're subsidising about £2,000 a day.
Yes, we provide a transport service
Yes.
to get across the River Medina, and at the moment the council does subsidise it. You within the budget, within the income proposals for the budget, we did put forward the ability to raise the prices on the floating bridge, but obviously that would have an impact on residents, and members at that budget meeting decided that it would not be prudent to do that. So there is the ability within the council to reduce that every year, but that obviously then does reflect in increased prices. So it's a choice that you as members made about which way you wanted to go.
Your question, Councillor Jarman, I think that's one of the parameters that with this Art of the Possible is looking at, is reducing the need for that substantial subsidy. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. I entirely agree with Councillor Adams on this, that that vessel is not the same vessel that it was. Its problems it's got now, and I say problems without wanting to actually use that word, are entirely environmental in terms of the timings and stuff like that would be faced by any vessel, the maintenance cost, the maintenance schedule, that would be by any vessel. What I am particularly sick of hearing, quite frankly, is the derisory comments towards our floating bridge. You know, that floating bridge is running at 100%. We've held the prices at the last budget. Yeah, please, get out and use it. And I think a lot of people put off using it because they, oh well, it's never running. What's because they're told by the local council, oh, it's not good enough, it's never running. It is running. It's a beautiful thing, amazing bit of equipment. So quite frankly, the way it works is something to behold. So get out, use your floating bridge. Make sure you factoring into your daily routine instead of going through the Coppins Bridge, which is a pain in the backside. It's a lot easier to use a floating bridge. Please use it, and then we'd have give that current vessel, and I hope it's in situ for many years to come, as better financial prospects as possible. And that's my view, and that'll be the view of my party going forward. And hopefully, when we control the council next year, we'll be chucking this out.
Right, I think everyone's had a chance to discuss. Shall we move on? Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite our guest, Mr. Ruiz, Daniel Ruiz. I call you Daniel. Is that all right, Daniel? And you have come from the Island Transport Infrastructure Forum. Apologies, I should have really put you first, being a guest, but I hopefully you found it interesting. Good.
So thank you
As you
very
see,
much.
we're very engaged.
No, it's been very good to hear the discussion. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to you. I understand. Is that okay? Better? I usually told for talking too loud anyway. So I am Daniel Ruiz. I am a Vintner resident, married to an island girl who brought me here in 2021. And I wish I'd come sooner. Give some context about me before I go into what the forum is. I know that you know a bit about it, but I'll assume that you want to hear a bit of what it is from me, so the horse's mouth. But mainly I want to hear from you what you need it to be, because it is still forming and very much still formable, so malleable, and above all, it needs to be of use to the island, give value and support the decision making that goes on and the policy making that goes on in this building. It is not a decision-making body. It is not a policy-making body, and doesn't think it is. So, who am I? I live in Ventnor. I am a member of the board of the Office of Rail and Roads, so the rail regulator, the strategic roads regulator. I chair their audit and risk committee. So I'm a non-exec director there. I also sit, and these are a couple of the relevant bits. I'm on the partnership board of Transport for the South East, which is being proven useful as well on the forum. Alongside that, and the reason why I'm dressed very casually, and I apologise, is that I spent the day teaching maths and engineering at the Isle of Wight College today. So wearing a tie wouldn't go down very well with your average apprentice. So I chair, and I'm very pleased to chair the forum. I regard myself as independent. I am objective, approachable, flexible, constructive, and I try to feed those adjectives into the culture of the forum itself. What is the forum? It is a cross-sector, and I have to read this because I try to make it as succinct as possible. It is a cross-sector group which brings together public, private, and community stakeholders to advocate, advise, inform, challenge, and support the Isle of Wight's transport and infrastructure strategy. It does it in as transparent and constructive a manner as possible. And it does that because that's what I wanted to do, and I try to enforce it with the participants in the group, supported amply by Michelle, Alex, Stuart, and others. It provides, or it is intended to provide, because as I say, this shaping is going to come from you, to provide independent, evidence-led recommendations, and I'll come back to that word, and collaborative solutions which should be intended to help the council, along with island businesses and communities, to deliver resilient, connected, economically enabling infrastructure for residents and businesses. That's quite a lengthy elevator pitch, if you want it to be called that. It has no members. I was very, very keen when we started to shape the terms of reference that it was not a membership body, because membership implies ownership. It implies a right to be there. And in a way, it also implies exclusivity, because if you're not a member, you can't participate. So very deliberately, it has participants, not members. So Stuart and others will know, if people don't participate actively, then I don't really want them there, because this mustn't be a talking shop. It has to generate insights, it has to generate ideas, which can then be handed over to elected members to feed into your policy making and decisions. The goals, I suppose, are twofold. Tactical, in terms of having a kind of pipeline of issues that warrant collective discussion and can lead to action by either the operators or, as I say, feeding policy by you. And that pipeline is an opportunities list which is growing. And in fact, I've got a couple of things taken from today which I think we might be able to develop for you. And it's tactical, and it's also strategic, because anything we talk about, anything we do, we propose, advise on, has to be has to target economic growth, has to target thriving communities and wealth and well-being for the island. So that's sort of a kind of, I hope not too waffly, insight into how the forum has been set up. Participants come from all the operators, so we've got the chief executives of the two ferry companies, senior representation from Hover Travel, from Island Roads, Eddie Fellows, from Southern Vectis, from the railway companies, from the steam railway, because it's very credible, very relevant. We also have Joe Smith from NHS, the Chief Operating Officer, because they are a key stakeholder for transport and mobility on the island and to the island. We also have representation from Visit White and from the Chamber of Commerce in the guise of Rob Dobson. So that's probably enough from me. I'm sure you have challenges, have questions. Please bring them on.
Daniel, thank you for coming and for the explanation. So I'm sure there's members who'd like to ask some questions. So I think I've indicated about Councillor Blake first and Councillor Jarman and Councillor Stewart. Off you go.
Daniel, thank you very much. And I'm pleased to see that you're involved in the creation of this group, and I will be just chairing it for, because you and I have dealt with each other before, and I think you're perfectly placed to oversee this. What I'd like to see this come out of this is things like all options reviews for some of our more remote areas. I'm thinking of Ventnor, my ward. I'm thinking of Freshwater as well. With the ongoing situation with the military road, we need to make sure that we are looking at thinking outside the box. And I think that's what this group, I think we'll be able to do. It'll have the frequencies to be able to sort of bring in people from further afield, and maybe sort of think some things that us as councillors can't. So I welcome that. And I also think that we need to think about how our current transport network is set up. I mean, it's a hub and spoke with Newport, and with the loss, I've made this point many times, with the loss of Undercliff Drive as an A road, we only have one A road going east to west and west to east respectively, and that is through Newport. And we can't have all this traffic wanting to go from one side of the island going through Newport, because it just grinds to a halt. So we need to be looking at that, and I think part of that is engaging with stakeholders as well. So I'm really pleased to hear you'll be speaking to people like the hospital, things like that, because of course they're a huge amount of people on the roads is going to and from hospital, either through voluntary or involuntary in an ambulance, but things like that. So but yeah, I welcome this group, and look forward to hearing how you get going. And I will say that as members, we should allow this group to get on and do things not entirely away from us, but make sure that we're not putting our agenda onto this group to allow it to have freedom of thought.
Great, and that's good to hear. Although I would like to reassure really firmly that this group cannot work and should not work in isolation. And transport's an interesting thing. I've been here for many years, and the island is a brilliant template for how things could be done superbly, because it's a controlled volume, it's contained, as you all know. We need to try and think of mobility as from a system perspective, and considering those parts that are remote and therefore could very easily be dealt with in an isolated way, making sure that the various types of transport fit together, whether it's scooters or trains or anything else. They need to. We have an opportunity to show how efficient transport can be on the island, and it was great to be. The forum has been going for 6 months now. We've had 3 meetings. First one was in September, and it was good to be looking at the transport plan at the same time as you did. And I'm interested to see the way the perspectives align. There's a lot of overlap inevitably because we saw the same things, but there are also some additional things that have come through, some additional insights, and in particular around the system of systems and how we can look forward and help you be strategic, because I don't envy you your jobs. You're often dragged down into the detail. TRO's an example, case in point. You have to deal with the detail. I would like the forum to try and help you be able to dip in and deal with the strategy in an effective way, which complements that inevitable attention to detail.
And I've got Councillor Jarman next.
Yeah, so I'm very pleased to hear about this. One question I do have, though, is we met with the new Chief Executive, Ruth, of the Hampshire and the Solent, which I keep
Brian Johnson.
I keep mispronouncing it as Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Combined Counties Authority, right, for some reason, but that's a purely incidental matter. The question is, how will the role of yourself and the group integrate into what's being planned in terms of integrated infrastructure on a wider basis within the combined authority?
I'll give you a philosophical answer, and I think Stuart is gagging to give you the precise answer.
I could see that, yeah.
There is a network of organisations like Transport for the South East, like what we do in the island, what's going on the mainland elsewhere, that has to fit together, because the island serves and is served by routes on the mainland, so the North Island. which I like. We, if we're talking about our system of systems, we need to factor in that whole network, which goes way beyond our shores. And that is possibly where we need to kind of make sure we dovetail with the combined authority or other transport groups. But detail.
Yeah, no, having been involved in the specific conversations around devolution and transport, I've held the forum as being a good example of what can be done between public and private partnership working. And it's set out within the Island Transport Plan that it recognises these partnerships are essential. So the forum delivers that for us. It's the ability, and which is why we support it, is because it actually it's the process by which we achieve that requirement. We will be taking that to the combined authority and saying this is a system that works for us. And in actual fact, there's other authorities across the country look at the arrangements we do in the forum and the precursor and say, actually, this is what we should have been doing here. And so, you know, we are being looked at as a good example. And this is why we want to promote this to carry on in a form under the combined authority as well. Previous government departments have also cited the importance of other communities having something like the Island Transport Infrastructure Forum as well, because it's a good example of that partnership working.
Councillor Stewart.
It's a critical thing, which is why I'm sort of trying to keep it as short as I can. It's difficult because infrastructure and transport are the underpinning of everything we do. I'll leave the more difficult questions till the end, so we can build up slowly.
You say difficult because they might be sensitive. If so, I'm insensitive. So hit me with it.
Difficult as in more complicated to actually manage. So okay. So the first thing you mentioned that obviously there's a number of people and organisations involved. Can we just, you mentioned community. How does the community get involved? Or engaged?
Quick question. The community being non-council and non-transport, two things. One is that after every meeting, we try to put out a press release as quickly as possible, which summarises the discussion that has been held. Number two, and this is an item on the agenda for our meeting on Monday, is to have a public meeting, at least one, if not two, a year, where, as I said on the tin, we hold the meeting fully in public and invite public questions and discussion.
Okay, if I can come back to that, I would strongly recommend that you bring the sort of wider community in as early as possible. You know, you have us. You also have an enormous number, 39. I think it's 39, isn't it? Local councils.
Yeah.
They will all have an interest in this. You know, obviously, specifically, not necessarily strategically, but that's useful. I think it's difficult to emphasize the need for the community to be involved in as much as possible, either through the media or directly. So if I move on, the two missing bits from the two obvious missing bits, there's a third issue, but the two missing bits are the council and the politicians, which is to some extent the councillors and the local councils. Are the council involved, and do you have any direct input from any of the councillors at the moment?
I think the straight answer is yes, and I'll explain how I think it's yes. Every meeting is populated by a significant number of executive members and senior members of the council. So Shell, Stuart, and other staff. That's it. Thank you. Right words. We have deliberately not got elected members in the forum as a rule, because for the simple reason, and I know this is slightly contentious, that we want to keep it unpolitical. However, I think I've hopefully made it clear that I think we do it for you. So Monday is a case in point. We have a 2.5, I think, hour forum, and then we have an hour immediately afterwards with the 2 MPs and the leader of the council. Someone from this committee is more than welcome. In fact, quite right, I would be really pleased if someone from this committee were to attend that slot as well. And the idea is that, and this is a case of an example of where we're forming. We've been trying to have this for the last 2 meetings, following a conversation I had with Joe Robertson and with Richard Quigley, and also Phil. So this is the first time we're managing to do this. I would like every time we meet to have forum, and then immediately afterwards report to the elected representatives and get input from, feedback from the elected representatives in the hour following. So I hope that answers that question and confirms it was a yes.
The next thing which I wanted to raise is there's an awful lot of people who are suppliers of transport, and considerations of where that transport may be, whether it's, well, there's not airplanes here, but the airport's been a bit defunct for a while. So I'm thinking of things like transport users, delivery vans, supermarkets and the like, you know, people who need that infrastructure and need that transport structure as well. Are they going to be brought into the system?
I would argue that they're already represented to a certain extent by the by Rob Johnson and the Chamber of Commerce, but I mean, there's a challenge there. We need to make sure people know what is on the agenda coming forwards, so that they could contact us and say we would like to contribute in this way or whatever. But similarly, it's beholden on us to be proactive and canvass opinion or get some input from those those groups.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Chair. It would also be worth mentioning, so a couple of points is, as I say, the partnership working really delivers on what we aspire to within the Island Transport Plan as having that key partnership. It is recognised that there's community representation and advocacy groups which are not represented within the forum. Therefore, the proposals under the governance to deliver on the local transport plan is to create another tier where we can bring in advocacy groups, interest groups and community representation as well. So we can feed that in. So it would be a two-way conversation with them as well. That is similar to what was the Quality Transport Partnership back in the day, which was again facilitated by the Isle of Wight Council to meet the needs of ensuring that the Island Transport Plan is meeting the requirements of the community and listens to the community when it comes to its actions and delivery on transport matters. And it would be the formal way in which we can feed that back through to the forum itself, and likewise we'll provide them with the update of the business of the forum, as on top of the minutes being published and the terms of reference, and also agendas as well, and future items to be discussed. In regards to representation from the others which require or reliant on the infrastructure and transport, such as logistics providers, I am looking to pursue that myself to get a relevant representative from the logistics industry to sit on the forum as well, at a similar level to the others who are attending already. It would give us certainly a representation we used to have under the Quality Transport Partnership.
Thank you. I mean, it sounds very positive, and I really appreciate the efforts that is being put into to actually make this work. And you mentioned two things, which is economic growth and thriving communities, and you've got health involved, which are the three key things that I always said were damaged really, really badly by the ferries. And that's my final thing. You've got the ferries there. The problem we have is that the ferries mean that the GDP of the island is 25% below what it should be. There are community aspects to it. We all know those. We hear them all the time. You will hear them regularly on all sorts of forums. In fact, you don't want to get engaged in too much of that because it gets really difficult. And obviously the health aspects are important. As more health care is delivered on the mainland. So how do we actually manage to both have the ferries in the tent, but also even vaguely accountable, because we all know that at the moment they're not accountable in any way, shape or form?
It's the burning question. I am very, it's made easier by the institution of the Cross-Solent Transport Group by the Department for Transport. It has not yet stepped up fully, but it now at least has a chair in Brian Johnston, who's a very credible chair. That group is, as I understand it, set up to focus solely on ferry pricing, ferry ownership, and those thorny issues. It has helped, I think, with getting the forum going, that those issues have not been on our agenda, because they are being dealt with, and we've been told sort of not to deal with them in the forum. So it takes away that kind of quite sensitive element, which could have diverted the attention of the members and could have stopped them starting to develop as a group that can be constructive and productive, including the ferry companies. I know there are always people who will attack and try to drive behaviour through kind of, not aggression, that's the wrong word, but kind of firm treatment. I am trying to take the complementary approach and try to kind of nurture them and kind of make them want to. That in isolation, that would be naive, but knowing that there is this kind of alternative, complementary kind of more there's a stick approach being taken elsewhere. I'm comfortable with that at the moment. That doesn't mean that in time the forum might not take on full responsibility for all aspects of transport and start to wield both stick and carrot, in the interest of getting the right outcomes. But at the moment, that's where we are. So we're not dealing with those thorny issues. However, your points about health and encouraging the ferries and others to kind of make sure that people can travel to the mainland to get their treatment, and that we actually have a topic, an agenda item on Monday looking at youth and making sure that young people can travel cost effectively or affordably. Those type of perspectives are being factored into our agenda.
Thank you.
Can I just finish? Do you mind? Just very quickly. Thank you for being tolerant of the fact that we are not yet achieving perfection. But I really would encourage, that's all been useful. Please continue to challenge, throw things our way. I'm very happy to come back and talk to the committee when you want me.
Very welcome back, Daniel. Thank you. I was going to suggest that and thank you very much for the invitation to one of the member of the committee to attend your post meeting. I was going to suggest that maybe it goes in our terms of reference that the chair goes, attends, and the vice chair would be a deputy. To make things nice and easy, wherever they may be in the future. So I just think needs to get written in our terms of reference at our next meeting, which will be post-election. So I had the three people that had indicated to speak. Anybody else before we move on? No? That's great. Well, I think you got that off pretty lightly. It was maybe friendly bunch, but yeah, it'd be great if you can come back. And it was great for being so candid and open and honest and with us, and the invite is really greatly appreciated. And you explain why you need that distance between elected members and the forum. I think that's very healthy.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the committee. But equally, it's a long way back to Ventnor, so I appreciate that. Everywhere's 20 minutes away from Newport. That's why it's the best place on the island. Yes. Right, let's go back to my agenda. Right, so we're now going to hear. Well, you're going to hear from me actually. It's committee reflection on projects. So, at one of our briefing session, I think it was the agenda setting session. Actually, I thought it'd be really good if we could, since we're coming to the end of term, as it were, of this council, be really good to have a reflection back, because we so often focus on what's going wrong, how we can fix it. We tend to sort of dwell on the negative, really, I think sometimes, and we actually have so much good stuff to say. So I invited officers to bring forward lists of the achievements. I think it's really worth saying that. I'm going to start with the transport. But we've only got from 2025, 2026 during the life of this committee work, not going back to 2021 as would have been good. So I'll just put in one thing that I know of, because I think it did come under me as cabinet member at the time. It was sort of like a double hatter with Councillor Jordan and myself, was the brilliant success of the Rhine Interchange project. I know that was before, I think it was probably finished by the time you'd arrived, hadn't it, Michelle? But that was such a fantastic achievement and investment. I think anyone who's gone down there now can see that the temporary pain we had has been worth it, and in that new bus interchange and with the trains coming in. So I think we were the first. That was part of a city bid, I think, with Portsmouth as well.
It was the Transforming Cities Fund, Chair. So it was a 3-party bid between Hampshire, Portsmouth, Southampton and the Isle of Wight. So yeah, it was a very successful bid.
Memory, I think we delivered first. I think we did very well.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say you, because I was on the Portsmouth side at the time, but yes, Isle of Wight delivered first. So we beat them to the curb there.
Yeah. Councillor Adams, yes.
With the Ride Interchange project, I've mentioned this to Phil. Yes, it has been a very good project, but there's a basic flaw on it, and it needs mentioning and it needs addressing, because it causes a hell of a lot of problems, particularly in the summer and the tourist time. The exit from the pier onto the main road by the roundabout, it causes traffic to back up all the way up Union Street and beyond, round beyond the old town hall. It causes tremendous traffic problems, especially in the summer. People can't get off the pier because when you come off, you're pulling off the pier. You have a 2 or 3 car length and you hit a set of traffic lights by the King Lud and the Alamo. And then you go another 50 yards, you hit another set of traffic lights. And I believe that first set of traffic lights where you exit the pier needs to be moved, or the junction needs to be moved, because when those lights are red, nothing can move. If the junction was the other side of those lights, when those lights are red, traffic could exit from the pier. At the moment, we have a real problem there. And it's bad. It backs up. I'm not just saying, it just goes right back up Union Street, Julie. And I think it's just something, I mean, it's not my ward, I'm probably speaking out of turn.
Is that while the train was out of action though as well? Were there more cars coming down the pier?
Possibly, but it's just something, I've just noticed something various times I'm in Ride, and there's just a total bottleneck the whole way up Union Street, and vehicles backs up the pier. And it seems to me something that really could be quite simple. I know it isn't going to be as straightforward as that, but if the junction was just moved, the exit from the pier, if it come off to the left-hand side of those traffic lights as you're exiting the pier, when those lights are on stopping the traffic that's on the main road and allowing pedestrians to cross the road, the traffic could exit the pier, which to me just seems to make a lot more common sense in trying to ease congestion. Because outside of that, I don't think there's any problems there.
Thank you very much. Shall I just leave that with officers to reflect on, maybe? Not expecting unless you want to say something else, Michelle, sorry.
Well, the only thing I would say is that set of traffic lights directly at the end of the pier is a pedestrian crossing to allow access to the transport interchange itself. So it's not built on phasing, it's done on demand. So obviously in the summer period, when there is a lot more people, then there's going to be a lot more demand for it. So I can certainly take your comments away, but I would say if we wanted to ensure that there was an accessible walking route from the side of the King Lud over to the interchange itself for people to then connect to the trains and the fast cat, that pedestrian crossing is in the right place for the pedestrians. I wasn't here for the design, so I would have to check on that. But generally, I can tell you that it's done on a desire line. So it will be assessed to see where the natural desire lines are and where it fits into the, for instance, the entrance points of the new interchange itself, so that there is an accessible route for those with mobility problems, etc., so that they have the most direct route possible. That's usually the kind of design standards that are taken into account. But like I said, I wasn't directly involved, so I will take those comments away, and if there's any further information, I can get that to you. Okay.
Much. So I can continue with some transport related successes. We had the rollout of 31 electric buses, which was just a couple of weeks ago, which I was very pleased to represent us and spoke at. It was a fantastic event. I wasn't expecting a three-piece sequined string quartet. Sorry, it was a trio playing at Clough. It was absolutely fantastic, and to see those electric buses, and all British made, is absolutely fantastic. So that's a really good boon for the island and our sustainable transport way forward. Sorry, I'm flagging a little bit now. Members, you might realise that. Then we had the awarding of the LEVI contract, the adoption of the Island Transport Plan, which we all did a couple of weeks ago, and I think one of the biggest successes, which was actually started off by Regen, it was go for levelling up round 2. We were successful levelling up round 1. Levelling up 2 had to be a transport related application. We did put one in that was for a project called the Iron Green Link. It was knocked back at the time by the government, but revived about a year or so later to a great happiness. About £13.1 million roughly of investment from the government into sustainable transport link from the west over to the east, or the east to the west, depending which way you're looking at it, and including for me especially some really important improvements, bring forward some of the LC whip plan for Newport, for pedestrians and for cyclists. And there was a slight delay in that because then the new government sort of held back on the awarding the contract, but that did eventually happen. So now we are starting that with a manager in place and designs being done, which is very exciting. I think there has been success for the floating bridge. A couple of highlights: the foot passenger numbers have returned to pre-COVID levels. On VE Day, the 80th anniversary, the staff raised £2,600 for the British Legion, which was fantastic. And one other notable event sort of made possible by staff was it remained in service after close down time on the night of the 2nd and 3rd December in order to ensure football fans who had gone to Southampton to watch England Lionesses could get back on the right side of the river, having missed the Red Jet. So if those things are going beyond the normal, I think that we really need to celebrate, as well as obviously it increased reliability, which we have seen. I think it's also a worthwhile saying, another success has been able to getting some money back on Floating Bridge 6. I think that's been a success, negotiating, getting I don't know what the award was, it's covered by NDA, but we did get some money back for what was deemed a faulty product. So we should, and the committee's work followed on from the cabinet, absolutely saying we will have a new vessel. So that's where we are at the moment. I think that's worthwhile saying as well. Parking, we've provided free parking for 897 vehicles in Key Road, in Rhine and River Road car parks in 2025 to remove the additional concern of parking costs for those accessing NHS appointments on the mainland. That already does help. And with the increased focus on detecting blue badge abuse, 85 blue badges were retained by the civil enforcement officers last year for active misuse, i.e. being used by another person without the blue badge holder being present. An additional 124 blue badges removed from circulation owing to expired badge displayed having not been returned to the council. So that is a success. They're very precious commodities, our blue badges, and it's not good for anyone that they're being misused. And the civil enforcement officers last year, this current financial year actually, are on course to exceed 30,000 parking tickets in a year for the first time since 2012. So demonstrating the team's dedication, tackling antisocial and irresponsible parking across the island. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Mr. at all, Michelle, going back, say, over the last 5 years. I'm going to do rights of way in a minute.
I've been here too, so I can only do two.
Yeah.
But no, thank you, Chair. I think that is a comprehensive list and shows that, you know, that our teams, that our members obviously give a strategy that is workable, that is usable, that we can deliver upon, and that our teams do then deliver that strategy and get the best results for the community, for the island. So yeah, as you said, sometimes it can be a bit negative, but I think generally, as a council, both members and officers, we work incredibly hard and we do produce results that benefit the community. So thank you for taking the opportunity to highlight them.
Thank you. I think it's really important. Everyone needs to be, you know, told they're doing a good job. Needs to be acknowledged, everyone's hard work working together. So the rights of way, I mean, this is a massive thing for the Isle of Wight. The opening the first stretch of the King Charles III East England Coastal Path. A lot of us were present at the Isle of Wight 3 Culver to Ventnor. That was a great day. And we've also got Isle of Wight 5, Children's World to Colwell, and Isle of Wight 9 going to Cowes. There's also, they've done a completion of about 25 surfacing schemes. Completion of 15 boardwalk, bridge and step schemes, and they've worked within partnership with National Landscapes and carrying out works with DEFRA, the Access for All funding. And there's been introduction of a rights of way case management system, being the department's first asset recording and problem report software. There's a lot happening at rights of way, and again, it just makes the Isle of Wight accessible for everybody, doesn't it? I think Darren and his team really need to be congratulated on that work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pertinent because His Majesty the King officially opened the King Charles III England Coastal Path today. So it's a 900-mile round the country path, and our Rights of Way team were very proactive in ensuring that the island was part of that coastal path. For some reason, it got missed off at the beginning. So we now have a comprehensive round the island path that complements our partner authorities across the water and also gives people access to the stunning scenery that we have on the island. And as you said, there are new stretches going to be opened this summer. So we will very soon have a joined up route as close to, so in some parts it's obviously not physically possible to be right on the coast, so it is the nearest available path, but generally it will be a beautiful walking route through some very stunning scenery.
And another win, Michelle, for the team was being able to get down through Newport and down the river, because originally I think it was going to go over the floating bridge. So to actually add in, I don't know how many extra miles that must be, it's probably 12 or 14 probably, at least, to actually come down right down the river into the best part of the Isle of Wight. It's really good, I think, isn't it? Of course, we'd love the Osborne House to change their mind, but we'll wait on that one. So I've got onto another favourite topic of mine, regen. So the Isle of Wight Regeneration team worked in partnership with Carnival artists, shade makers, to deliver a 2.5 creative arts facility in the centre of Ryde called Department, which was the former Elizabeth Pax in Cross Street. Thank you, Michelle, for coming. I forgot.
Sorry, my apologies, committee. I have to leave early tonight. If you do have any other questions I haven't answered, by all means, drop me an email or a Teams.
Yeah, thank you very much for your input this evening. And so, yeah, Isle of Wight Council provided governance with a council body to support for department and led on funding bids for the project, which was secured grants from Arts Council England, National Lottery Heritage Fund, and Historic England. Department delivers town centre regeneration objectives initiated as part of the Ride Has scheme, attracted additional footfall and spend to the town, contributes to an improved evening economy, and has created 10 new jobs. Department's innovative approach to reusing redundant retail space attracted interest from across the UK and was featured as an example of excellence by the community business think tank power to change. In fact, I was at a recent event on the mainland, and someone just randomly said to me, "Oh, Isle of Wight department, we know all about that." So it has, that project has really reached a national ears, definitely. I won't go about the green link. I have just said that, but it was yeah, I won't. I've covered that, so I won't repeat that. But it's also, but actually on the last bit of the green link is actually it's managing to pick up some of the work that was still left over from the High Street Heritage Action Zone that has schemes. There's highways work in Rye to do, and following up work in Newport as well with improved pavements in Newport High Street, and hopefully some planting. Sandown Town Hall, that was a massive achievement. I think I remember Councillor Jarman and I had a discussion about this, and you wanted to go to the market, and I said no, let's look for some funding, and we were successful. So in 2023, the Isle of Wight Regeneration team secured £3.1 million in funding through UK Government's Youth Investment Fund towards the repair and restoration of the Grade 2 listed Sandown Town Hall. And Sandown only has, I think, 12 listed buildings. That includes the monuments and the churches. So they don't really have that much of because it's quite a new town, relatively new town. They don't have the historic built environment like someone like Newport or Rye does. So it's got so it's reused for youth provision and to support the Bay Area's creative community with commercial studio and exhibition space. The grant also meets the cost of delivering youth provision, which includes the creation of 4 new posts as part of the youth worker team, hosted by Community Action Isle of Wight. The capital project has been managed by Isle of Wight Council's UK SPF funded area regeneration manager for the Bay, who I understand will be carry on the work now that UK SPF has ceased, but I understand she'll be carrying on. That role will be carried on with support of the Bay councils for the regeneration area there. And it underlines the dexterity of Isle of Wight Council's regeneration team to maximise the value of 2 parallel government funding initiatives to kick off the process of renewal in the Bay. It really is an absolute milestone. Venture Keys, which was our levelling up round 1, I think that was started by the previous council, but I believe in the summer, in July 2021, the bid was submitted, and we were successful in October of that year. It's delivered significant regeneration since the site was acquired in 2020. More than £6.7 million has been invested across the estate to date, enabling major upgrades to key assets and driving economic growth for East Cowes. The Clumbine has received essential structural, safety and engineering improvements, securing its future as a vital base for White Shipyard. You've now agreed to purchase the building, unlocking further private investment and safeguarding skilled jobs. The barracks has undergone extensive restoration, including new shower block, roof, heritage windows, structural repairs and full internal refurbishment. It will shortly be opened by UKSA as a new training hub with potential for future accommodation expansion. Public realm works are scheduled to begin this month, with the prom building set to follow shortly after, creating new community and commercial space for East Cowes. The programme has also supported negotiations securing T-Mill's 5-year extension and has helped stimulate wide multi-million pound investment interest in the area. So that's been really great news for East Cowes. And also, I think part of that project has been I think there's some Arts Council funding as well. I think there's some other funding for the amazing mural on the side of the building.
Yeah, there's an application for Heritage Lottery funding to create some interesting heritage information down there to inform the public down there in the public realm of what that area used to be and the importance of East Cowes in terms of shipbuilding and industry.
Yeah, it's a massive icon now, isn't it? When you come on that ferry, everyone can see it and get an understanding what actually happened there in that space. Very close to my heart, the film studio. And this has come, from a direct because of our cultural strategy. Sorry, the corporate plan in 2021 included regeneration, but cultural regeneration as part of our aims and objectives. And Medina Studios will provide 50,000 square feet of state-of-the-art stage space across 4 stages, located on the east bank of the Medina River, down by Kingston. It will also give producers access to 14,000 square foot of office space for temporary or permanent use and 20,000 square feet of workshops of building sets and props. Medina Film Studios have secured the site and funding to complete the film studio and planning has been secured. As we all, those of the planning committee will know that. I think they've discharged most of their pre-planning conditions as well. In addition, they've received a grant from the Growth Partnership to develop the site as the first ever net zero film studio. This is a really big news item when it opens, to have literally net zero. We've already had there's already plans previously for a battery storage site, so that is going to be the basis for the the net zero project there. Medina Studio, working with the Isle of Wight Council, have also received a grant to produce an economic feasibility study from Safries and North City Limited. This is now complete and being used to encourage and lobby for further funding to encourage production on the island. And in fact, there was news from Sunderland just yesterday that they have been successful in securing extra funding for their project there, which is a bit more expensive than ours, but precisely that same to bring skills forward and to enable initial productions to come forward as well. So to add it as a sweetener, as it were. So I'm very hopeful that our efforts will be likewise successful. Museums and Library Service, Dinosaur Isle was successfully awarded a grant of nearly £500,000 in 2024 from Arts Council England Museum Estate and Development Fund, the MEND Fund. The Isle of Wight Council supplemented this grant by £180,000 from its capital fund. The works began in September and include new roof, installation of heating and air conditioning, and improved lighting. And as we heard earlier, it opened yesterday. The Isle of Wight Council Library Service received funding from Arts Council England's Library Improvement Fund in 2024, and we improved facilities at Cowes and Ryde. It's particularly accessible. There's accessible toilet went in Ryde. And whereas work at Ryde, but also an accessible toilet went into Cowes Library. No, I've got that wrong again. Sorry, start again. Work at Ryde Library is completed and include the provision of accessible toilet and improved lighting and carpeting within the children's library. The work at Cowes Library is ongoing due to delays resulting in the discovery of a structural issue. But once complete, the works at Cowes Library will provide an accessible toilet, new kitchen, and access improvements alongside roofs and roof works and repainting. I think we've heard how fantastic One Leisure has been going from strength to strength, recovering from COVID. It has been a challenging process for the leisure management team and staff, but we all know that how that is improving, and we're able to take on more staff there as well. The growth seen across Isle of Wight leisure facilities reflects national trends. Main leisure providers across the UK reporting record membership numbers, particularly among younger age groups, who prioritise fitness, health, and overall well-being. The Isle of Wight Council Harbours have recently been declared compliant with the Port Marine Safety Code. Ventnor Haven is now in the third year of its management arrangements with Ventnor Haven Management Company, who operate the harbour on behalf of the council. As part of their responsibilities, they also manage the removal of seaweed, which has been an ongoing issue since the harbour was constructed in the 1990s. Newport Harbour is managed directly by the council's in-house harbour team, who played a major role in achieving compliance with the code. They've also overseen the Phase 2 harbour wall works funded through the Isle of Wight Council Capital Programme. These works are scheduled to be completed in March. A final inspection of all harbour estate walls will be commissioned to include the project, and the resulting report will guide the authority on any long-term future works that may be required. I have to say that the Harbour Committee has worked really well, I think, over the last 5 years to oversee that, and there's been a really positive improvement to where we were, say, 10 years ago. Economic development, Building 41, our building in Cowes, dedicated, which came with the last of the European funding, I believe, increases in co-working and event space, offering affordable, flexible workspace and networking opportunities. And I believe now that is providing a surplus now, and we've got new tenants coming in all the time. It also provides free business support programs, including Go for Growth Innovation Catalyst, which help businesses develop new ideas, improve operations, and access expert advice. Over 120 businesses have accessed this to date. We had financial support as well from the rural, that was the Rural Prosperity Fund, which helps rural businesses invest in equipment, expand and innovate. 20 businesses were supported with jobs sustained and new jobs created, and £700,000 in grant secured over the 2 times we ran the SME fund. So we've got the Green Impact Programme. That's something actually I introduced to the Isle of Wight back in 2017. Really great. That's gone strength to strength. Free programme which helps businesses of any size, and it's absolutely free to use, to become more carbon efficient and reduce their bills. And over 30 businesses have been supporting the programme so far this year. We've got employment and skills programmes, including the Youth Hub, Connect to Work and Rebel Business School, supporting residents into employment and particularly our young people as well, giving businesses access to newly skilled staff. Department for Work and Pensions funding support attracted £2.5 million of funding over 4 years. Alongside this, our economic development team worked closely with key partners such as Chamber of Commerce, FSB, local education providers, Solent Growth Partnership and neighbouring local authorities. And of course, we do have the Economic Development Board, which oversees this. Again, is a wide membership from sectors and influential players such as the Chamber of Commerce, the Isle of Wight and FSB. These partnerships ensure that island businesses have strong networks, access to training, special advice and wider regional opportunities. So that I have actually finished. I know it's a lot, it was a lot, but I think when you sit back and reflect on what we've achieved, it really is worth saying. I'll invite Mr. Alex, Mr. Minns, if you want to say anything else about that, if I've missed anything out. It's a lot, but we've had 5 years. We've attracted a lot of money. We've delivered really well. I guess the other thing would be, if you've got any news on the replacement for UK SPF, because a lot of this work was underpinned by that very valuable funding.
Chair, before you do that, if you don't mind, my apologies, I have to go. Got to go and do a defibrillator launch.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't say too much. Just a couple of things that people might want to know in addition to what Julie said. In terms of the Green Link scheme, the first spade is in the ground. So a section of that project is starting to be delivered in the Wootton Station Road area. So that's quite of interest. In terms of the libraries that have received the support, we have got an application for Ventnor Library that's just gone in, so that we're hoping that we're going to be able to achieve similar things in Ventnor as we have in other towns. And I think in terms of UK SPF funding, it is very disappointing that the government have ceased that funding. That funding finished on the 31st of March, which affects some of the programmes that we can deliver into the future. But we have put a request forward to the combined authority in the pipeline of projects that we're hoping that they might be able to fund. And I think all of the 4 unitaries, as they are at the minute, have all put that request in for the funding to come from the combined authority to hope place some of the UK SPF growth funding. So there is a bit of a good news story if we can get that approved. There's many more things we could have commented on, but I've just tried to comment on the ones that we've delivered and or have started. But there are others, and there's no mention of Ryde Neighbourhood Board there. But clearly there could have been.
I think also we must thank everyone who's worked on the place plans. We've now got place plans in Ryde, Newport, the Bay, Cowes and Northwood, which have all, and it's fascinating, their journey. Each one's taken it a completely different way, and that's what you want, really. You want it to reflect the people in that area and their needs and aspirations. So we must thank everyone who's been involved in those place plans as well, and we really hope they can move forward for sure. And I think a quick thanks to Arts Council as well for all the funding. I think we're up to about probably nearly 8 million, 7.5 million, 8 million pounds, something like that we've had in total, because we've been a priority place. And again, they came to us in 2021 and said, because you have put culture and regeneration in your corporate strategy, we know now we've got the political backing. So not only is there the need, that we see the need here, there's also the opportunity to deliver. So you must thank Arts Council for that. Yes, Alex.
Just as a closing statement, I think one thing is worth saying, that all of those regeneration and economic development activity programmes that you've seen there and more, as a result of the restructure and the savings, are now only delivered by 4 people.
I think it's really important to say, because I think in 2023 it was a huge change in in the way that the council was restructured as far as its work and departments go. So yeah, we have to thank all members, sorry, all team members, officers, for stepping up to the plate and still delivering. I think when the regeneration team was curtailed, I think there was something like 38 million pounds worth of grant funding we still had to deliver. Right, okay, sorry, underrated it. I mean, that's impressive, isn't it? I really think we should, be really grateful for the effort and the fact we have delivered on time and within budget in most of them. Sarah, I will send this over to you. I'll have ad-libbed a bit around it, but I will send it out to members as well, so you've got it. You might be interested in it. So, unless anyone's got anything else to add, if I've forgotten, yes, Councillor Quirk.
A very comprehensive review, so thank you very much for that. I think it would be helpful in years to come if it was circulated in advance, so members could actually sort of think, oh, I've got a little bit to add to that, because we all know little bits extra that we've sort of come across, and I would like to also say thank you to the officers that have been working, because they're working with very tight numerical constraints and very tight budget constraints, and they're doing a job above and beyond in many cases. So I'd just like to express our thanks to the officers involved.
Councillor Quirk, I think you probably have to blame me for this, because it's something I used to do as cabinet member. I would do a recap and thank on at the end of sort of each year. And now we've got the committee system. So I did ask officers if they could pull something together. I think I probably didn't get enough time to do that. So you blame me, but I think that's a good point. If future committees wish to have a yearly review, then I think that's a good idea. They can contribute.
It's the teacher remark. Where it could be better.
Used to read my reports, did you? Here we go. Right. So I know that was a lot of listening to me, but I just think it's well worth just sitting back and reflecting and giving thanks. So we have done performance management. So committee work plan. There was one thing I wanted to add on to the work plan. Has everyone got it up in front of them? So we've got the growth and prosperity strategy action plan. Do we have an update on when we have to do that, Alex? The growth and prosperity strategy action plan, is that linked to the combined authority? Okay. And the concessionary travel, Stuart, do we have a date we need to be doing that?
We will be looking to commence with the wider review of concessionary travel in the summer, but it's likely to carry on until the autumn, because we will require some engagement with the community as well.
Okay, thank you. And the DBID, I have my visit Isle of Wight meeting today. Unfortunately, you couldn't make Thursday. Is a very difficult day because it's committee day, isn't it? I managed to join online. So I think you've had a recent meeting with them, so they're more than aware of the of when they have to get the information that we require to be able to make a decision.
Yeah, I've drafted the basic report that has to come back to this committee, because this is the third time we've had a DBID, so much of the information is the same, but I still need information from them to complete that. And
strict timetable we have to adhere to.
They are aware of that timetable and they are working towards it, so I'm anticipating that.
I did reiterate today that should be our total focus, really, getting that through. Yes, okay. So the other thing that's not on here that we did talk about at our briefing was the disposal of car parks. And I'm a bit confused in one way, because we did bring this up in the summer. I understand there's a previous paper that that Mark Downer did for us, probably about 2019-ish, I think 2020-ish, which we did all the work seeing if there was any other uses for car parks that were underused. A couple were highlighted. There's one in particular that the committee wanted to see brought forward for potential disposal, and that will obviously go through our the asset disposal policy, looking at housing. However, I understand there needs to be a wider remit for this now? Has everyone got, I know Michelle's not here, but if you can help, Alex, that'd be helpful, thank you.
In my previous role, when I managed car parks, yes, we had a strategy paper that looked at all of the car parks, looked at the most underutilized car parks, and then focused on whether there were opportunities to do something else with those assets. And those car parks, but it was back in 2019. I think the view is that that information might well be a bit out of date now, and that Mark Downer wants to actually have a look at whether those car parks that is still the case with those car parks, and then bring some new information back to the committee, because it may well be that there's been some changes since then.
I think we definitely want to see that come forward, though, so that goes on the forward plan, because we have been asking for this since the summer, and I know that some work has already been done, but we won't want to delay it if there are, opportunities for homes that we desperately need. Councillor Blake, and then Councillor Quirk.
Was I say, Chair, if that paper's going to come forward soon, just looking at what the scope is for that, bear in mind that the last 5 years have been atypical, I'd say, in terms of the environmental factors that have affected things like tourist numbers and stuff. So potentially look at the scope in terms to make sure we're getting a true picture of the situation rather than just a trend that is artificial.
Quirk.
This committee could have a very dramatically different makeup in a couple of months' time. And I think there's a couple of things that need to go on there to bring, because they're really important, to bring the committee up to speed as quickly as possible. The first one is the transport plan.
Your microphone slightly nearer, please. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
The first one's the transport plan, which we sort of accepted reluctantly, a transport plan that we all thought was a bit too limited in terms of the green agenda rather than the commercial necessity agenda, and it's needed rebalancing. And we had that assurance. And a lot of work's been done in between, and there's been public consultations. I think it would be good for the new committee at a fairly early stage to be updated with what's happening and how that's going and the sort of expected timescales. The second thing is that we've had a lot of problems with coastal erosion over the last couple of years, and that has a dramatic effect on quite a few of our beach access staircases, stepways, paths. And I think in the forward plan, that should be coming back up onto the agenda to be looked at. So whoever's here next time around are actually considering that element of the tourist economy that is actually quite important to be able to get down onto beaches.
Sounds fair. I think the transport plan will be coming. Stuart, you're the best man to answer that question.
Yeah, more than happy. Of course, the Isle of Wight Council has adopted its local transport plan for the island transport plan. The next stage will be to present the implementation plan and the monitoring and evaluation plan associated with that document, which we'll take to future committees for approval, because once we've got those in place, it will really set the scene for going forwards. To address the point in regards to the economic drivers, that has been addressed within the revised COB version that was adopted by the Isle of Wight Council, where that's been put into primacy as one of the key rationales or drivers for the change. It was always recognised, but now it's been moved up the agenda, quite rightly so.
Would that be autumn time-ish, you think, when you anticipate that?
Autumn time, though, I would like to start sharing drafts of what, and of course, the precursor to that will be the discussions, the information I'll be sharing on the forward programme of schemes as well, which will obviously form a part of the implementation plan, but it's just to show how it's all connected.
That's great. So we'll put that on the forward plan, and the other one was about beach access and our tourist economy, coastal access. So if we could have that maybe as field. Yeah, Alex.
I think for the forward plan, I think this committee, in terms of the briefings that we had, also made a commitment to look at the athletics track. And I think obviously when the financial decisions were made at medium-term financial planning, there was an agreement to fund the floodlights down there. So the next stage is to look at how that site is managed in the future to ensure it continues as a successful operation. So that is a committee paper for a future date as well, which I think we agreed to put on the floor plan.
On that one. No, thank you. That's really helpful. I think what has been really good is having some pre-briefing. Oh, 1 second, I'll come back to you. Has having the pre-briefings on these, because some of these topics are very complex, and I think having a committee session away from this sort of formal setting is really helpful. So you really get underneath it, and then we can use our committee time much more efficiently and effectively than for the decision-making purposes, rather than to go into deep weeds of some of these strategies that we get. So I think that's been really, really good, and I'd like to see that continue. Whether that needs to be written into our constitutional tool, I don't know, because I think it's something that's evolved as we. I was told in the summer the committee first began, we weren't even allowed to do that. But I think things have relaxed since then, thankfully. Did you want to say something about that, Councillor?
We've had quite a few frustrations with sort of progressing things onto the agenda and things like that. So I think it's quite important to get items like this onto our forward plan, so that it's easier to push them onto the agenda as an actual action type paper things. So I think we need to sort of play the game, so to speak.
Yeah, that's great. Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add something which follows on from the question I put in, and so I would deal with that now. But what I've got down is managing the impact. If we could have a consideration of managing the impact of major projects on island businesses, because I think there is a number of, well, I know there's a number of major projects which have happened, major infrastructure projects that have happened, and I'm not sure that the impact on businesses has been dealt with as a separate issue. So I'd like to see if we could look at that at some stage.
That's not a decision paper as such. That's more of a how do we look forward and maybe develop a policy potentially, that sort of vibe.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if it's all finished on that item then. So questions. I've had one question that was in the deadline. Thank you very much. You get a gold star. That's Stuart. And I've got two other members' questions which I accepted in the last day of term and asked version. So would you like to read your question out?
Is it necessary for me to read it out, or can we put it into the record? Then I'm happy to say that I'm very pleased with the response, but I'm quite happy. Would you do what I'm asking is, do we need to read it out, or because I'm happy at the moment to just simply have it put into the minutes?
So yes, we don't need to read those out. Councillor Stewart, they'll be part of the record. So Councillor Jarman has gone. And his question came in after the deadline, but I allowed it as an urgent. I think it's very simple. I think we probably do have a response, even though you can't expect a response to an urgent question necessarily. What is the status and timescale for implementing the safety barriers and related measures at the freshwater bay? For our freshwater bay on the A3055. Stuart, do you have an answer?
Yeah, the proposals have been put forward because they require dispensation of planning to be considered. though it doesn't require planning permission per se, it does require the dispensation. So therefore, it has gone to the planning authority for consideration, the initial proposals as a pre-application. That has been done, and we are taking on board those responses to form the final design that will be commissioned imminently. In regards to timescales, it will take time to develop the detailed plans, but we will be progressing that immediately in respect of furthering those designs.
That's great. I'm sure Councillor John will be very pleased to hear that response. I've got another question from Councillor Critcherson. Again, received after deadline. I have had further requests for the speed limit on Southwood Lane in Whitwell, Kingston Road in Shorewell, and the South Down Lane in Chale to be reduced to the national speed limit. Residents of all the rural lanes and villages I represent are becoming increasingly concerned with the speed and volume of traffic that use the very small single carriageway lanes. With vehicle use increasing and multiple diversions which create higher use of rural lanes, they are increasingly unsuitable for the higher speed limit. Walkers, cyclists and horse riders use the lanes. A lower speed limit would enable a much safer, more enjoyable experience. I would like to formally request a proposed change the speed limit on rural lanes to ideally 20 miles per hour, but accept that in some areas 30 miles per hour might be more suitable. A change in the limit will send a clear message that rural roads are not suitable for higher speeds and that a lower speed is safer and now more appropriate for multiple road users. I would like this proposal to go on a future Transport Committee agenda. I think she means ERT, this committee agenda, with the aim to make it an Isle of Wight policy. The lower speed limits will increase the tourism offer that our rural areas provide, increase availability of the countryside for all non-vehicle users, and create a better living environment for residents in these areas. There are also aims in the recent transport plan. Just to follow up on this, I actually did bring a motion to Isle of Wight Council in 2016, which actually was passed, that we go to a 20 miles per hour in our residential streets, our rural lanes, and around schools. There's basically where you work, live and play, and that was actually passed by the Isle of Wight Council. It wasn't moved forward at the time due to, I believe it was the budget not being set for it. But I'm a great believer in 20 miles per hour. And I do visit Wales very often, and they have only moved a few streets back, the roads back to 30, but they have had a significant decreases in people being injured and killed on their road. So it does actually have a benefit. But that's just my little backup. I don't know if we're not expecting a response. I don't know. Sure, we have got you in the room, and you are this comes under your work. So if you'd like to make any comments, that would be really welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, no, more than happy to do so. Obviously, the priority at the moment is to deliver on the recommendations within the island speed limit review. Those are the ones which have been evidenced following detailed traffic surveys undertaken across the island as being our priorities, especially given the killed and seriously injured statistics that also takes into consideration. However, as part of that recommendation, it was consideration of reviews of appropriate areas for measures such as 20-mile-an-hour zones and so forth, and that will be developed. But unfortunately, we do need to look at these priority areas first to ensure that those safety critical locations and routes are addressed in the first instance, recommendations, and then we will start. But we can do that as twin track consideration of areas where we might propose lower speed limits. However, we must recognise that these must be self-enforcing. So therefore, engineering schemes will need to be undertaken to ensure that the 85th percentile of traffic using those routes travel at or below 20 miles an hour. Therefore, that will require physical interventions in these locations. It is not recommended that this would be per se something we could do everywhere, certainly in a rural context, because obviously we'd be looking to urbanise, or the potential will be to urbanise those areas, which would be inappropriate. Likewise, we do not, and the police will not enforce those 20-mile-an-hour zones where it is not supported by such measures. And likewise, if it's just a signed only 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, that is not enforceable, because there's no measures taken into account to limit speeds, vehicle speeds to that.
So it's sort of a lines and signs approach rather than the physical infrastructure. I think that's why the motion I brought in 2016 was for island wide in our town centres, residential streets, some of our country lanes, because if I'm going through a village now, or I'm going down into a residential street, or I'm by a school, it's almost self-enforcing that way. Rather than actually, well, I'm going through Brading. Well, why is Brading any different from Chale? And why is Pan any different from going down Mill Street, for instance? We have these anomalies on the island, and having a cohesive policy that we actually, well, it's everybody on the Isle of Wight is important. Every driver and every pedestrian and every street is as important as any other. So I can never really understand why we've gone for this cherry-picked approach, when actually, we all deserve to have a really good, safe environment to be in.
Yeah, I think any proposal has to be backed up by the facts and figures to ensure that what we're doing, again, it comes down to spending of public funds as well. If there isn't an issue that needs to be addressed, we could potentially be seen as diverting funding away from something that needs to be addressed, a collision hotspot or an area where there's frequent, excessive speeding or collisions. So therefore, we've got to be mindful that we're responsible to do so. Likewise, we would need to undertake further traffic surveys in each and every location to ensure that before we even take forward the proposals for 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, without any interventions, there is that compliance with the speed limits. Only where we can physically do some reduction of speed limit, and that has been cited in the Island-wide speed limit review as well, certain locations, but it is backed up by engineering works as well.
I think the debate is it's public health intervention, isn't it, versus a highways intervention. I think though it is on the highway, it's actually about public health, and I think that's why places like Netherlands and Wales have taken that, and Edinburgh have taken that whole approach, the blanket approach, if you like, because it's the cheapest, most equitable, because everyone uses our streets.
Yeah, no,
public health intervention.
Completely understand. What I'm always loath to do is to give anyone a sense of security where there isn't the measures in place to ensure that they are safe. So if they should be seen assigned it should be remembered, national speed limit isn't a target. It is a recommendation. You manage the speed inappropriate to the road in which you are driving, the conditions in which you're driving. So therefore, in many instances, you can't exceed that speed limit because of the blind corners, the narrow roads, unless you've made that decision consciously to drive recklessly. But it's something we do to understand, and that the request to pursue this, and is something we're intending to do as part of the speed limit review.
Very much, Stuart, and I apologise, members, for me extending Councillor Richardson's question, but I have got, we have got a history at the council prior to her joining us. Anyway, really pleased to hear we finished with 3 minutes to go. Oh, sorry. On that, yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. With your indulgence, one of the roads that was included in the consultation was in my ward, for instance, was deemed as being below the 85% of speeding, and I get that, understand that. However, there has been multiple instances of cars interacting, and I mean colliding with pedestrians there because of excessive speed. So at what point, I get entirely that you're looking at incidents of speeding, but at what point does that get taken into account? Because so far that's one on deaf ears, that cars are speeding. Of course, it might not be 15% of them or more doing it, but it only takes one or two, which can be mitigated by reducing that speed limit to stop the collisions with pedestrians.
Bad driving, and then
yes, I would say so. For instance, so the road I'm thinking about is Grove Road. It goes, it's quite a steep road going down past the school. We've had two children hit glancing blows on their elbows from wing mirrors because cars are speeding up there. Now, because there isn't room to correct, if all of a sudden someone's arm goes into the thing, that road has been deemed as acceptable at 30 mile an hour, despite the fact that really you can't do 30 up there unless you're going like hell because it's a very steep road. However, say if it was 20, it should mitigate more against those collisions. However, at the moment, under the current assessment, it's deemed as being a safe road because there isn't 15% of people speeding?
Yeah. No, absolutely fine. We'll pick those details up with you directly. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your work on the committee for this year, and hopefully we'll see you all after May the 7th. Good luck, everybody. Thank you, and thank you for all your support, officers. Thank you.